cast Let It Out, and we had a little bit of Murphy's Law pay us a visit on this Sunday, March 13th, daylight savings time in the United States. So we're going to roll with it. Anyway, today is going to be another great show. We have a phenomenal guest, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about what Comics Cast is and what Let It Out is about. So Comics Cast, we are all about the indie creator. So if you're in the indie comics community, we want to get in touch with you. We want to promote you. We want to get eyes on you. And that means if you're a penciler, an inker, colorist, publisher, etc., you name it, we want you to be on the show. So Let It Out. Let It Out is a little bit more intimate. It's where we get in touch, or once we get in touch with you, we get to showcase you. We get to tell your story. We get to show the magic happening on screen because it's a little bit of a draw and talk live interview. So that's what today is about. So without further ado, I want to talk about our phenomenal guest today. His name is Mr. Ramón K. Pérez. Got to remember the K. Ramón Pérez. He's the head honcho at Raid Studios. He's the second guest in I'm going to say the Raid Studios month here at Comics Cast. He's a phenomenal talent, and I can't wait to showcase him. He's an Eisner and Harvey Award winner, as well as working with major publishers like Marvel, but also an Archie Comics, as well as indie publishers as well. And I just can't wait to tell you more about him. So let's get the show started. Here we go.
Hey, wow, I'm here and you're not.
I'm already having a little bit of hiccups right here. I kept on hitting the button, and then it wouldn't start, and then it would start up, and then I would hit it again, and then it would stop. And I was like, oh my gosh, Murphy's Law, just go away, just go away. But anyway, and I just realized it's the 13th, March 13th, but it's not Friday.
It is, but it's not Friday.
It's Sunday the 13th. So first of all, I want to say welcome, Ramón. It's so nice to have you. And so let's just put all that craziness behind us. We had our share of drama. But on this episode, we have Ramón. So, Ramón, you're just going to have to bear with me because I'm going to have to do double duty here in terms of
flying solo here.
Yeah, flying solo here. So, Ramón, let's just jump right in because, I have become just a great fan of you. And, I did the pre-show with you yesterday. I became an even bigger fan. It's like, I think I had followed you before, but I didn't equate that you were that Ramón until later on when Sam Noir, from your studios got in touch with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's that guy. And I've been doing a little crash course and learning more about you in this last week. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. And like I said, I mentioned to our audience. Let me see if we got any chats in here. Oh yeah, we got Saeed.
A couple of faces.
It's like woohoo, perfect timing.
Perfect timing in my birthday.
Oh well, happy birthday, Saeed.
Happy birthday indeed.
Yeah, and let's see. When I have time, I'll get in touch. Okay. And yeah, here what happened to Rick? Oh, Rick was our other co-host, and he's gone on to do his own personal thing. So that's where Rick is. Yeah.
So many co-hosts.
So many co-hosts. But anyway, let's talk about you, Ramón. So let me pull up a PDF here of your work.
Sure, yeah.
And
it's funny that you mentioned I'm that guy because I've gotten that so many times in my career over the years because it's one of those things where I've worked in so many facets in the industry. They're like, are you the same Ramón Pérez that did this? way back when. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. They're like, oh, okay. So it's kind of hilarious.
I think maybe you need to come up with like some sort of catchy moniker. I mean, I like Ramon. We had a discussion yesterday. We share the same first name.
That's right.
But you go by Ramon. I go by my middle name. And I guess that would be good because if we both went by Ramon, I'd be like talking to myself right now.
But
right now, it would be. But I'm just saying is that everybody, I think people have they see your art, they know your art, they just didn't equate with who you are. I think maybe you need to come up with like a wrestling name, like Andy Bellinger. You need to come up with Ramon.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was gonna say a wrestling name. There's the Razor Ramon.
Yeah, that's right, Razor
so
Ramon.
you maybe need to be called Eraser Ramon. I don't know, but you're
Eraser
not.
Ramon.
You don't really erase too much because your artwork doesn't need to be erased. It's so good. But let's move to the part of the show that we call the origin story. All right.
Okay.
So this is where I hand the mic over to you, and let's just talk about your creative journey with a visual backdrop to some of the art that you shared with me. And like I said in the pre-show, you don't need to queue up any of your origin story highlights to anything that we're showing. In fact, we'll probably go revisit some of it. I will maybe go to some of my favorites, and of course, you can always point out ones that you'd like to expand upon. But let's put the mic back in your hands, and let's hear your origin story.
Yeah. I'll just start in general, and then we can always jump back to a piece, like you said, if it's pertinent to something I've done in my life. But so I've been doing this a while now. If I do the math, I think it's maybe 25 years, maybe a little bit more. It's hard to gauge, but I've been freelancing pretty much since I was in college, and my career began I'm going to brush aside the stuff where I was just freelancing around my local city doing signs for stores and all that stuff, earning coin because I didn't really like getting a real job, so I just would try to hustle my way, trying to get work, doing anything I could, whether it was designing business cards or doing flyers for stores or posters for events, whatever it might be. But my career really took off when I graduated. After a couple of years, I sent out a portfolio into the gaming industry. So a lot of RPG gaming, like Dungeons and Dragons, Rifts, Palladium, White Wolf, all these companies back in the early 90s when RPGs were quite the thing. And I guess they're kind of coming back again. RPGs are the thing again. But on the impetus of one of my classmates who had actually been working freelance in the RPG world, he suggested I try out the RPG genre to send out my portfolio because I was doing a lot of sci-fi work, horror, fantasy artwork. And I never really thought of it. I was just in school learning how to draw and learning how to do things, but I never really actually geared myself in any particular direction as to where I was going to go with that. I wasn't that guy who went to school going, I'm going to draw comics. It was more like I was the guy who was like, I want to just draw. Where that takes me, I don't know. I've always drawn comics since I was a kid, but it never occurred to me that would be an end goal, if you will. Yeah. It just never, I was looking at architecture, fashion design, all kinds of different things. So anyway, my first client, what I call real client, was Palladium Books, which is an RPG company, and it was one of those funny things where I sent out a portfolio with 6 pieces, 3 in one style and 3 in another style. Because I always like to play in different styles.
Ooh, well, 6. So you didn't go for the overkill. You sort of said, I'm going to give 6 focused looks, right?
Exactly. I did 3 big full-page splashes in each style. One was a very clean, inked with quill kind of black and white artwork, and the other one was also black and white artwork, but done with charcoal, and it was really messy and kind of more lively, if you will.
Energetic, that's the word, right?
Yeah, and basically, I get I send these out to various companies. I get a call one day from this is before the internet. I get a call one day from this client and or proposed client, and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing 3 pieces for an upcoming book?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, that'd be great." He's like, "I like this style that you sent me, but can you send me more examples?" Just to be sure.
This wasn't a red flag, was it?
No, not at all.
Good.
Not at all. And he was just like, I'd like to, see more examples in that style. And he chose a quill one, and I was like, oh yeah. He's like, I could say. He's like, you send them to me for Monday, and mind you, this is like me FedExing things, right?
I know.
And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I think that should work, okay. And basically, I had nothing else in that style. So over that weekend, I just knuckled down and inked like 15 or 20 pieces. Anything that came to mind. I did a TIE fighter. I did like some fantasy stuff, some monsters. I just went nuts over the weekend.
Baptism by fire, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And this pretty much sums up my career, the amount of work I'll do in a short time. But yeah, so I sent him the copies of the originals, and he loved it. He gave me 3 pieces to do.
Oh, shoot.
And then I kind of never heard anything for like a month and a half, 2 months. I was like, I guess I screwed that one up,
Oh, no.
And I got a copy of the book in the mail, and like he'd used 2 of the pieces, but the third, which was a big splash, he'd actually cut up into, like he'd separated the foreground from the background. And I was like, what's going on? Like, oh, he hated my work. You know what I mean? And the funny thing was, like, and he called me back like a month later. I remember I was like, I was living with my dad at the time in my bedroom in the basement, like teenager basement bedroom. And I'm just like, it's dark. I'm sleeping in from partying the night before. And this phone goes off, and I'm like, what? I'm like, hello. And he's like, yeah, it's, we talked last month, would you be interested in doing more work? I need a big book done. And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. And he's like, I need 30 pieces by the end of the month. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Right?
What did I just say?
And I'm waking up and agreeing to things. I'm like putting the phone down. I'm like, oh, my God. And his name was Kevin Simbita, who was the founder of Palladium Books. And we had a great working relationship from like at least half a decade. I worked for him almost exclusively, and then over the years I started to bring in other clients as well, and we became good friends over the years. And but he was definitely a trial by fire, and he put me on one of his main books, and then as he saw what I could do, he put me on more and more books to the point where I was having a lot of freedom, where he'd be like, draw me like 20 wizards doing these kind of things, and we'll work the book around you. And I was like, it was like paradise,
Yeah, you had a little freedom there, because
my God,
you think that somebody would be like an overbearing editor, like just sort of say, I want this specific things done, but he would just sort of say, like you said, 30 wizards, and just do it in your own style, and then we'll write around it.
Yeah, he'd give me some parameters and stuff, and I think what the great part was, he had an artistic background as well. Like he was a bit of an illustrator as well, and so I think he saw the natural abilities or potential, whatever you want to call it, and he was pretty much like, let this kid just run with it, because he's good when he gets to go nuts, right? And this was like, and this could actually speak a lot to the future, what I call like level. When I feel like in a career, you level up on certain projects, right? And I find those are the ones in my career where I've had the opportunity to go nuts and do whatever I want on a project. I'm not kind of stifled by what I feel is a constraining script or whatever it might be. And that's kind of where my abilities kind of improve, and I do my best work.
Yeah.
So as I said, I worked for him for years, and doing a lot of sci-fi fantasy artwork, a lot of black and white artwork. Started to do work for Wizards of the Coast, other companies where I was doing collectible card game art, and a variety of things. But around I think it was the late 90s, maybe mid to late 90s, the industry started to take a downturn, because a lot of video games are starting to come up as the main escapism for role playing and stuff like that. So I think board games began to suffer a bit. So while I was working, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I began to try to get work in other arenas. Tried to get into comics. I started to actually, during my time in gaming, I also started a webcomic called Butternut Squash with a good friend of mine, Rob Kugler. And it was kind of like, I call this the squeakiest, a dirty comic, but we were squeaky clean. Like, it was just, we had this like dirty sensibility and weird sense of humor, but we never swore. We never did anything filthy. It was just like this weird.
It was implied.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And we loved it. We did this for years off and on. And it was a time when webcomics were also coming up. But it was not. You couldn't really make a living off of it, unfortunately, unless you were one of the bigger web comics out there who could merchandise or use ad revenue. So because we were like big, but we weren't huge, I could never really make a living off it. So the comics suffered a lot for updates because I was always working on my career work as well, right?
Right.
But this work led, funny enough, as I mentioned, this dirty, squeaky clean comic I did
So
actually took me into working into kids' books.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up working on a lot of kids' books over my career. Just things like how to ride your bike, cooking with Billy or whatever. I mean, it's like weird little things. But I actually ended up working on we have a magazine up here in Canada called Owl Kids. It's like a kids magazine.
Yeah.
And I ended up being an illustrator on an ongoing kids series, basically called Max Finder. He was like it was kind of
Dora, like Dora the Explorer type.
Kind of like Dora the Explorer or the the Baker. What are those, the old ones from the Baker Boys or something? Or
the Hardy Boys.
Boys. Yeah,
Hardy Boys.
Exactly.
Oh, so it was like a mystery, like
exactly.
It's kind of like a Scooby Doo type thing. It's like, dang, Mr. Wilson was behind the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it was like a 4-page comic I did every month, but it actually paid my bills, covered all my expenses. It was a great bit of stability for some. Like as an artist, you always want a little bit of stability, and this kind of created mine. And I worked on it for about 7 years, I think.
7 years? Is that collected?
Yeah.
Is that a collected?
There are trades of it. There's like about 5 or 6 trades with my work, I think.
Just your work?
Yeah.
Well, 7 years. 7 years of your work.
Yeah. So you're doing like 12 issues a year, or maybe it was 10 issues a year. I can't remember exactly. And then they would collect every year into a volume. Right. And it was interesting, and like I said, it was fun to do, but it was also just that thing of stability. And it's actually where I trained myself to do a lot of work in digital because I was working traditionally on it, but I'm like, at the time, Cintiqs were coming available and other programs and Wycoms and stuff like that. So I actually learned a lot of the stuff I do now on that job because I'd be like, well, you know what, kids aren't going to be able to judge if the style changes a little bit. So I would try out digital stuff. I would work, tried Manga Studio, which became later known as Clip Studio and stuff like that. Yeah. And
funny note. I was watching your podcast, which is Make Stuff Mondays. I'm going to say
exactly. That's the wholesome name.
Yeah. That's an example of your cleanest dirty humor type title, which is really really cool. But I happened to watch the episode where you were talking about transition.
Transition X.
Trying to go from digital to from traditional to digital. And I was going to say that what you're just talking about is you're doing this, you have your passion project and you're doing this kids comic strip type thing. I think this is like another example of a milestone in your career because you're cutting your teeth doing like storytelling, sequential storytelling, even though I don't know if they're like strips or if they were more like
it was a 4-page strip,
Yeah. And then you're doing that and you're transitioning to digital as well. So it's sort of like I had a good time listening to you talking with Dax and Eric, and you were like talking about, well, I still like working with traditional, but then there was like that moment where it's like, what, digital will just speed things up.
It's like I love the tactile nature of working traditionally, but in an industry where they want things yesterday, especially when you're juggling a lot of jobs, you're if you can cut out 3 hours out of your day scanning and cleaning up scans or whatever it is, it's a no-brainer, So like I said, I always love comics, and and this is actually the riff that you're showing there. Actually, I have a copy here actually too. So this was actually a great.
Let me sell you that. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, so the company I work for, Palladium. Speaking of a great client, like this guy was. So yeah, this is it here. This is the collected edition. So it's a black and white sci-fi.
Oh, this is pretty hefty. How many pages is this?
Oh yeah. This is. I think this book might be like 128. I'm not sure. But this is the collected edition, and it originally showed up in a quarterly magazine. And when I worked for Palladium Books at the time, near the end of my tenure there, like I was talking to Kevin, the owner, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do a comic, what do you think about me illustrating because they had a quarterly magazine. I was like, what do you think of me doing an installment every issue of your magazine and just playing in your world? Because I love comics, but I wasn't Marvel and DC did not want to hire me. I tried for years, so
they're lost. They're lost.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. So you know what? Kevin was great. He said, "Yeah, let's go for it." He's like, "I can't afford to pay you like Marvel rates," but I was like, "Don't worry about it. This is me just having fun."
Yeah.
And he was super awesome. I got to write this story, draw it, and create it in his world. And
So now you're becoming not only. You've been taking story cues. Of course, you were doing butternut squash, and you were writing that with your friend.
Exactly.
But here now, so like you're cutting your teeth now, doing some writing, and of course, it's kind of like you're given this another milestone opportunity here, where someone's giving you complete creative freedom to kind of like,
exactly
do something. That's and I'm noticing a theme here, sort of like when people give you the enough rope for you to go crazy.
Yeah.
You don't hang yourself. You actually take that rope and you're using it to climb. You're using it to climb to another level. It's like you're putting a grappling hook on it and you're like throwing it up and you're like saying, you know what? I'm gonna keep on ascending. I'm gonna keep on climbing this ladder. But keep on going. Telling the story about.
I know. So and Kevin was great. I did this for several years around the late '90s, and then this is the collected edition from 2007, where I came in. I did a new cover. And I cleaned up the comic book a little bit. Because I also hand lettered it back in the day, which was awful. So I went in and re-lettered it all on the computer. Because back when I first started working, obviously I didn't have a computer, and slowly as I could afford one, I picked one up. It was a great opportunity, and I wish I could have done more stories for them. But like I said, my time in gaming had shifted, and I was working in children's books, and around that same time. Is when I joined Raid. That would have been around 2006 or so. And basically, Raid was a studio formed by Chip Zdarsky, Cameron Stewart, Ben Shannon, and Kagan McLeod. For 3 artists who of which were graduates of Sheridan College, like myself, from a different year than myself. And Cameron Stewart, who was a guy who was trying to make his way into comic books at the time. And basically, I came in as the first replacement member. They had Kagan, who
replacement. You should have been a founding member there. Keep on going. Yeah.
So basically, Kagan had had a baby on the way, was expecting, had just bought a new house out in the east end of the city, and that sort of thing. So he didn't feel he could afford or justify the cost of the studio. So I think I was their second choice or something like that. So I came in. And one of the things I missed a lot after I graduated was the sense of community,
camaraderie,
of being around other artists, basically. And this is what that gave me that. So I hemmed and hawed for a little bit because I remember I'd just gotten back from San Diego Comic-Con trying to get work in comics to no avail. I got no work opportunities. I got a couple of guys. I remember I tried to get work at, I think it was Oni Press or something at the time. I had interviews with Dark Horse. They were really good. They liked my stuff, but I never got any work. Vertigo loved my work, but never gave me any work. Oni Press said I should learn how to ink, which was
what?
I was like, oh my gosh! And
brutal.
Oh yeah. And my favorite was when I tried to sell Butternut Squash to Image Comics as as a monthly comic, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you guys aren't funny." And I was like, "We have 100,000 readers every month from all over the world, and we're not funny." I'm like, "That's interesting." So,
needless to say, you developed a thick skin. That's all I got.
You have to. I think when you freelance, I had a stack of rejection letters. Probably 5 inches high from the.
Do you still have them?
I tossed them all. I kept one actually. Actually, here it is. Hold on a second. Let me go off screen for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I kept one.
Are we gonna out this? Are we gonna out this person? Oh, it's from DC. Oh my god.
DC Comics. This is the only one I kept because it was. It was actually a handwritten response.
Okay, all right. It wasn't a form letter.
Exactly, because you always got form letters back in the day. It was just thank you, blah blah blah. And so this is the only one I kept, and it's kind of hilarious.
Okay.
I should maybe share this online, but it was from Karen Berger.
Okay.
You know, and you got the.
It is official.
Vertigo.
It's official.
Yeah. So you had a bit of form letter here, but you actually had a nice, sincere.
A handwritten letter, a note at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, sorry, it wasn't. It was actually not Karen Berger. It was actually Shelley Roberg, who now is Shelley Bond. So yeah, and basically, suggested give me a few suggestions, and was really nice and sincere. And I actually connected with her over the years.
It sounds like you guys are still like you're not like it wasn't a bitter type.
Oh no, not at all.
I mean, you even know that I guess she got married, so you keep in touch with her. So
well, she's quite prominent in the industry, and we came close to working together a couple of times, but nothing ever quite lined up, unfortunately.
Yet, I'm going to say yet.
Yes, yeah.
I was looking at your portfolio. You've definitely cracked the Marvel code. You've done
well,
Marvel,
it's funny because you try to get work, you try to do things, and sometimes it's. They want to hire you, but the right project's not there.
Isn't aligned. The planets, planets aren't aligned.
Yeah, and even a couple times where I when I was first starting out, I was getting I was doing a lot of conventions, selling butternut squash and that sort of thing, and I would meet a lot of writers. So a lot of writers would request me on jobs. So B. Clay Moore, who was famous at the time for his comic Hawaiian Dick, was a detective comic. Basically got me to work for DC on a Wildcat JSA mini 3-issue mini, and then Catherine Immonen, who prominent writer for Marvel.
Oh my gosh, you worked with the other half of the Immonens.
Yeah, the other I know the Immonens are great people. And,
shoot!
I'd met Catherine
and
Stuart many times, and I jokingly said to Catherine one day, I'm like, I'd love to work with you. You ever just give me a call. And lo and behold, she had a one-shot that came up at Marvel. It was called Captain America: The First 13. And
I'm gonna look for that. Shoot! Yeah.
And basically, it was a great little short story, one shot. And once again, the editor called me up and he's like, "I don't know who you are, but Catherine suggested you." And so, I had a lot of, and even Scotty Young, actually, who was a big fan.
Another name, another great name.
Scotty was a big fan of butternut squash. And I had the pleasure of meeting him in 2000, must have been around 5 or 6 maybe, because I was in San Diego promoting the first print edition of Butternut Squash, and he actually came by my table to pick up a copy. He was a big fan of the webcomic, and we kind of maintained a friendship since then. And he wanted to transition into writing, so he called me up and was like, "Hey, I'm want to do this thing with Marvel. It's going to be a Deadpool one-shot. I'm going to suggest you as an artist." So I had a lot of these one-shots happen over my career, but nothing really took where I got more work, unfortunately.
Did you send that issue of Butternut Squash? That story of how somebody liked Butternut Squash? Did you tell the editor at Image sort of say, "See, some people do appreciate my humor and stuff like that."
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, with companies, you always have gatekeepers, right? And it's whatever is running through a company is usually by the personal taste of that.
A bias. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, and he might have not found us funny, but at the end of the day,
you got the last laugh. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. So it's just hilarious. But so anyway, I'm rambling on here, but
no, keep on going.
Basically, I was getting all these one-shot deals with Marvel and DC, but nothing was really panning out. And just to speak to that letter from Shelley, it was I even got a couple of offers. I remember from Vertigo at the time, from a few editors to work on a couple of different series. I remember one was well, actually, I won't drop names of series because I don't want to.
You don't need to do that.
I don't want to embarrass anybody or say anything poorly, but sometimes what I wanted to get at was sometimes things line up, and sometimes I remember getting offers for scripts for a Vertigo ongoing series. They wanted me the artist on the series. Another one was a Batman one shot they wanted me to do, and so you get these offers, but I would after talking with the editor or you get the script, you're like, this is kind of horrible. You know what I mean? And
so you turned it down. You turned
down projects. So as much as you want to work in the industry,
you have standards, right?
I I think you can't jump at everything that's thrown your way, right? Like you have to know it's right for you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew like some of these series that I was being offered, I would just be miserable on. Like I would not be excited about. And and I remember one of the Vertigo ones I was offered. Like I turned it down. They were surprised. 5 issues later, after I saw it come out, it was canceled because no one was buying it. You know what I mean? So yeah. So anyways, it goes to show you, like, But at the same time, I was building a large network of people I was associated with and talking with, and artists, writers, editors, and eventually that network pays off. I always say it's kind of like you're planting seeds around, and you're waiting for them to sprout and grow.
And you never want to, even if something doesn't pan out, like you had to turn down something, never burn a bridge. So you never know.
No, exactly. Be polite about it.
Be
professional, that sort of thing. So around must have been 2010 or maybe 2011, I can't remember now, where I got a random offer to work on A Tale of Sand, which was a Jim Henson screenplay, basically. It was a screenplay Jim Henson, creator of the Muppets and all this stuff, had written back in the late 60s, before he had before he'd taken off with things like the Muppets, Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, all that. Yeah, this was like a live action movie script, very weird, kind of in the vein of Pink Floyd's The Wall or The Monkey's Head, all these kind of rock opera weirdo movies that were coming out around the late 60s, early 70s.
Surreal,
yeah, very surrealist, psychedelic kind of story. And no one was biting, so it kind of sat on the shelf. And I guess Archaea, the company who ended up publishing this book, had worked up a deal with the Henson Company where they could go through the archives and see what they could find to publish and create new content. This was one of the things. And basically, they called me up and they were like, "Hey, you were I can't remember who suggested me now. It's been a while, and I apologize for forgetting the individual's name. But basically, they were like, "Yeah, you should check out." Whoever it was had told them, like, you should check out this guy. He's done some work for Marvel. He does a comic. He does a comic called Butternut Squash. And they kind of just threw all this stuff and Archaea called me up and they were like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And they asked me to audition for the book, which I was very apprehensive about because I didn't like doing things for free, like on spec.
Was this going to be pro bono? Like you were going to do this?
Well, just for like a couple of test images, right?
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering about that. That red flag thing back there.
Yeah.
I was wondering if somebody was just going to say, "Hey, can you do like 7 more pieces?" And then you never hear from them. But anyway, they just wanted to like
they wanted to basically see how I would interpret the book, because they were surreal. Actually and because it's a very surreal, weird script. And they reached out to a lot of artists. Like Becky Cloonan was an artist they reached out to. There was another, I can't remember his name. He did a comic series called The Portent for Dark Horse way back in the day. So many different artists went out for it. I could even show you some of the samples of their work here if we wanted to. But basically, the Henson Company and Archaea both agreed on me based on my sample. And that's where I hit the ground running. And this graphic novel, like I just immersed myself in it for like 6 to 8 months. I can't remember what the timeline was, but it was an aggressive timeline. I think I started sometime around. I remember I was wrapping up the Deadpool issue and the Captain America in the first 13 issue I had mentioned earlier. I was just finishing up those 2 comics, and then this came along. And I had to finish those, and then I immediately jumped into this.
Oh, no rest for the wicked here.
Yeah, no rest.
You just jumped right in there.
Exactly. I just jumped right in. And by this point, I had also stopped doing the children's book. I think just that summer, or maybe I was still doing. Maybe it was a little bit of crossover. I can't remember. And this was like a trial by fire. And I worked on this comic, and it was great. They gave me, once again, at the beginning, they were like, "Do you want a writer to adapt the screenplay for you?" And I was like, "No, I'd prefer to do it myself." And
wow, so you took the actual Jim Henson screenplay for a movie, and you translated it yourself into the panels and the
exactly, because and kudos to them
giving you that freedom.
They gave me that opportunity, right? And which was amazing.
Okay,
yeah,
this is another like moment where people
exactly,
another
right?
milestone here.
Exactly, right? And basically, I got to just go nuts with this thing. I immersed myself.
It is.
There was a great archivist for the Henson company. Her name is Karen Falk, and basically, she would send me DVDs of like all their like all archival material of Jim working on short animations, college projects, all these things that weren't really public. And I really just immersed myself in him, his life. I got to meet his kids in LA who run the company now because he's passed. But they would tell me stories about their dad going camping in the desert. So it would just be like, it became a very immersive experience. And
I'm so jealous to hear those stories because I guess his son is it Brian?
Yeah, Brian Henson.
Yeah.
And then there's Lisa Henson who runs the company. But Brian was the guy who did like Farscape.
Yes.
And brought back the Muppets, I think, a couple times for different things. So
I'm hearing like from this story, I mean, again, these are like beats in your creative journey.
Yeah.
Like here, and they gave you this creative freedom. You totally immersing yourself in this property that you had to adapt a screenplay. I mean, it wasn't even like a formal script, and then you just threw yourself into it, and the fruits of your labor paid off because this won an Eisner and a Harvey Award. Is that correct?
So it was actually funny because when I finished the book, like it's done off to the printers. I'm talking with my editor, and he's just kind of like, like not to. He was kind of like he was kind of sheltering me, and he was kind of great. He was kind of letting me do what I wanted and seeing it come together. He would often say, "He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I see it coming together, and it looks good."
Okay, that's all you need to hear. That's all you need to hear.
Yeah, because I was in control of the whole look of the book. From we just like they were great. We talked about how the visual like binding of the book would be. They called in a great designer to design the cover and all that stuff, and I was in charge of the coloring, everything.
Yeah.
So it was like once the book was done off to the printers. And I think it was on the day before it was being released. I think it was, or a couple of days before it was supposed to hit stores. The editor was like, Ramon, not to add any pressure. He's saying this, of course, jokingly to me, but he's like, not to add any pressure, but this is the most money this company has spent on a book. So
no pressure.
If this book flops, we're sunk.
Well, they took a gamble on you, though.
Yeah,
and it paid off.
And I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what have I?" And like, that's when you like kind of reassess everything you've done, right? Like, because no one held me in check, no one reviewed my like. It was just like
they trusted you.
They trusted me, right?
Yes. Yeah,
we cut here and there. We went over the script a little bit. We cut a few scenes for length and stuff like that. But yeah, it was hilarious. And then the good reviews started rolling in, right?
Yeah, finally.
And,
everybody's like saying, is it that guy? Is that guy?
Yeah, exactly, right?
It is that guy. It is that guy.
And then like by the spring of next year, we get the Eisner announcements and the Harvey announcements and the nominations, right? So it's like we got nominated for 5 Eisners. We got nominated for like I think 3 or 4 Harveys, and we ended up winning 3 Eisners, a couple of Harveys, I believe, for the book, and a few other smaller awards as well over the course of the year. So suddenly I was like thrust into the comics community basically. And basically the all those editors I was trying to get work from at Marvel are suddenly calling me up and going, "Hey, you want to work for Marvel?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's like now you know." You know what I mean? So this opened up a door to like working on the X-Men, Spider-Man, a variety of different things over the years.
Yeah, we were showing that here.
Yeah. So this was like my first cover for Marvel after Tale of Sand, basically, where my editor, who I would end up working on the X-Men book for 5 issues, brought me on for. And he would just call me up. He's like, "We need a cover stat over the weekend with Storm and Aurora, sorry, Storm and Wolverine kissing, make it hot. And I'm like, all right. You know
I was
what I
like
mean?
going, where did you look for inspiration of this? You know, it's like,
I just looked all over online, basically.
It's like, yeah, and part of it was like, okay, I can't use that. That's not safe for work.
That's too hot for kids
that's
comics.
too hot, right?
Right?
But,
And the amazing Laura Martin colored it as well. And
yeah,
so it was just like, and that took me on the next 10 years of my career where I've worked for Marvel, for the most part, IDW, Dark Horse, various companies over the years, working on all the big books like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, X-Men.
Let's talk about this thing because I love this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was I don't know if it was on your Instagram. If it was, maybe I just didn't see it. But when you sent this to me, to do for your origin story, I just love this because okay, if you haven't figured it out, Ramón is Canadian.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like when we look at this, I was looking at this, and you gotta put the Canadian pride in here, and of course Marvel's most prominent superhero team, Alpha Flight, of course. I definitely followed that back in the '80s, but I love this one because you were able to capture that end credit sequence from the
that was the idea, right?
The first Avengers movie. Except those were the Avengers, and they're eating shawarma, and then here it's like no, we have the Canadian Avengers
version
team, which is Alpha Flight, and I just love it. So what was the story behind this one? Was this commissioned?
This was for I believe a one shot of some kind, where I was asked to do a variant cover for the issue. It was like an all Canadian creators. To be honest, I can't remember what the actual story was in the issue, but I was commissioned by my editor to do this variant cover, and it was a lot of fun. Like the first thing that came to mind was I wanted to do something different, have fun with it. I love the original series back in the 80s, and basically this was kind of my tip of the hat to, as you said, the end credit scene of the Avengers movie, but utilizing the Alpha Flight members basically, and instead of shawarmas, it's poutine.
That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah, the Canadian, the Canadian equivalent, I guess, maybe of
shawarma.
Of the shawarma. I don't know, but it was a joy to do. I had a lot of fun with it, and
it's
probably one of the last pieces I did traditionally as well.
Oh, this is traditional.
The ink work is the coloring is digital.
Okay, digital.
Yeah.
I just totally. I was wondering what they were eating. I thought it was like, are those French fries? And
French fries slathered with gravy with a little bit of cheese curd. Exactly.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And I even saw that you worked in a Mountie here. In
the background. You got to do everything. You got to work.
This is Canadian like through and
Canadian
through.
as can be, basically.
Yeah, and it shows like these are obviously bigger IPs, but it's uniquely Ramón. I mean, you put your own stamp of humor into this, and it's recognizable. So you're able to capture that moment.
And those are those kind of things where I love to put my flavor of humor into things, and and kind of brand it my own. And you don't always get your opportunity on everything you work on, but when you can, things are always fun to work in. Like the Star Wars cover that was a variant for Italian edition.
That's the reason why I've never seen this. It was only for an Italian edition.
Yeah, it's for the Italian edition of I think Darth Vader Volume Issue 1 or 2 or something like that. And you got like Han Solo there in the visor.
Yes, that's what I wanted to point out there. It's just you have had such a you told me about how you had to cut your teeth and get your bust your chops, and you've basically been rejected, but I'm looking at all this artwork, and it's like it just made you stronger, and you still got these opportunities to do some phenomenal artwork.
I think it's the hard thing in the industry is, especially when you're trying to break in, you see other people succeeding ahead of you and stuff like that. It can be disenchanting, but at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer your time will come when you're ready, and so I cut my teeth on a lot of other things, so I don't. For better or for worse, I don't have a lot of things I'm not proud of in my workload in my career, because I've cut my teeth on other things that people will never see. Like there are a few early comics works I did which they're not the best. I was still a novice artist. There's like a Hulk mini series out there where I penciled way back when, and someone airbrushed over the whole thing. Like when it came out, I didn't even recognize it as my own artwork. Like I was just like, this is like horrible looking.
They like butchered it, right?
Oh my pencils probably weren't the strongest, but then they butchered it color wise. It was just like awful. Like if you can find it, I think the comic has the lowest print run of any Marvel book.
Okay, that's a record that you don't want to like, you know.
Yeah, well, I think the reason for the book was it was called Hulk Gamma Games, and basically Marvel had to create a comic book to coincide with a video game release.
I see.
And they had forgotten to do it, so they had to have a book out within like I think like 15 days.
What is it with you and just getting like these impossible deadlines? Right?
Yeah, well, because I was also fast, so like I did the book in 4 days basically.
That's crazy.
And
of course, they butchered it, right? So
yeah, but basically, I think it was cheaper for them to produce the book than pay the penalty if they didn't produce the book to the video game company, right? So yeah, these weird little artifacts in my career that do exist and stuff, but for the most part, I've been lucky and I'm very proud of a lot of the work I've done throughout my career, right?
Yeah, and I love it. You know, you're talking about your relationship with the Hensons.
This came after my work, obviously, on the Tale of Sand book, and I often touted to the Henson company. I was like, hey. Happy to launch a Farscape book for you guys if you want. And while that never came, which is probably a good thing.
Oh, I thought there was a Farscape comic.
Well, there was a Farscape comic done way before I did this. I think it was the company was Boom that was putting it out. Yeah. And I believe Brian Henson had a hand in actually developing it, if I recall.
Right.
But this was actually done for the Blu-ray edition of the series.
What?
Yeah,
I already have it, but if I can find it with your artwork, I'll buy it again.
Well, no. If you bought the Blu-ray edition, the anniversary edition, I think it was the first time it came available on Blu-ray.
Right.
And it came with a comic book on the inside. And I did the cover for it, and I wrote and drew an 8-page comic.
Was that only in Canada, or was that a domestic release in the United States?
No, it was for the U.S.
I'm gonna bust out my collection after this and see if I have it. But see that
I'm there on your shelf, and you don't even know it.
I know. See, it's like I feel horrible now. It's like I probably own a lot of Ramón art. I just didn't know about it until
you're just thinking to yourself, "It is that guy."
It is that guy. I was like saying, you need to come up with a more creative moniker.
I know, right?
So that way, you would actually you just need to be called not Ramón K. Pérez, just Ramón.
Yeah, right.
You'll be like,
Ramón.
Yeah, add the trill on it.
Right.
It's Ramón, it's like that. But I look at this because I remember reading, about how this composition came about, and I'm a big fan of Art Adams. And
me too.
Children of the Atom poster, and I see the influence here, and that's one thing that I love about your artwork, is that I think it's because you're like a culmination of so many art styles that I love, and I think that it's like you look at it and you like, for me personally, it's like I love it, and I realize it's your style, but I like it because it's a smorgasbord. I don't know if I want to go like a thing.
No,
and it's still you. It's still
you're not incorrect. Like when I grew up on Garfield, right, and basically but then I grew up on a lot of newspaper comics. So if you look at my Butternut Squash.
It has that feel.
That's very cartoony. That's how I first started drawing. And then, as I grew up, I started drawing more realistic, if you in air quotes. So like and that's, I think, also the other difficult part I tend to shift styles a lot depending on what I work on. Right. So, if you look at this and then you compare it to
this,
like Archie, for example, this was a great cover because I tweeted a drawing of Archie I did, and the editor was like, "This is great. Do you want to do a cover for us?" And I was like, "Sure, I'd love to do Archie. Just use the one I drew." And they were like, "No, we can't use that one. You have to create a whole new original one for us." So this is the cover that came of that, and it was actually funny when I worked on this because I had to reposition Archie so many times during the rough stage. Because they were afraid it was too sexual.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
and you're like going, I didn't think that way. It's like,
yeah,
is there something in my head that's subconsciously putting,
yeah.
Archie in this provocative
So like the
position?
way I had his I had his leg hanging over the back of the car,
What?
like all disheveled, like he got assaulted by all these kisses and stuff. But for me, it was like the innocent Norman
Yes,
Rockwell
that's what I was
esque
going to say. Uh-huh.
esque image. But for them, they were like, yeah, no, looks like they're fucking in the. Oh, sorry, looks like they're sorry.
It's okay. But I see what you're saying. It's like
Yeah,
people read into art, and you wonder
exactly.
if it's we were talking about personal biases, and
Yeah.
it's like maybe
So
they're reading their own psychology into it.
yeah, so it was hilarious because I redrew him so many times, and
Uh,
eventually we settled
on this one.
on this position, which they
Uh-huh.
felt was okay, less
Racy.
suggestive, I suppose. But then after I drew it, I was like, hey, look
Uh-huh.
where the bottle is. I don't know. This is like, I don't know.
But it's so funny when I look at, because you're telling me the story, and I love your Archie work, because I was going through all the things, and I never read Archie, and it wasn't
Yeah.
because I didn't think it was a good comic. I just never really did. But when I look at this, I was like, maybe I should read Archie, because obviously Ramón cares so much about it. And I look at this, and one of the things that I remember reading about your all your talents here is that you're also a graphic designer.
Yep.
So I look at this, and I think maybe it was funny that you said the colorist butchered your work. It's like,
Yep.
maybe that's the reason why Ramón insists on coloring his own stuff, or like
Yeah.
maybe even doing the trade dressing, or integrating the trade dressing that goes on your covers, like integrating it into the artwork, because now you have more control over it. You have more control of the colors and
it's pretty the complete piece, right? And
very good graphic design.
Thanks, man. And because like I worked in graphic design, advertising, all that stuff leading up to my career in comics, I like to bring it all to the table if I can to kind of make sure the whole thing fits together, right?
Yeah.
And Archie's been great. Like I've never worked on an interior Archie story, though I would love to, hands down. Like I've often chatted with Mike Pellerito, the editor, or I think he's editor in chief now over at Archie, if not higher. I can't remember. But I was like, give me like an Archie one shot. I would love to draw the whole issue.
What's wrong with them? Why don't they? It's like I don't understand.
You got to wait till things line up, right?
Yeah,
I would love to.
Planetary alignment to get you in there.
But I've enjoyed doing so many covers for the series over the years, and I think what I bring to it is my nostalgia, a love of the classic Archie. Hence the Norman Rockwell like interpretation.
I get it.
The very wholesome-esque, And this was a great. We chatted about this during our pre-show. This was a fun opportunity where I can't remember if it was Mike or one of the other editors called me up and said, "Hey, we're going to be killing Archie."
I know. It's sort of like when I read the thing, it's like the death of Archie. I was like, it's become so cliche. It's like
I know,
the death of Wolverine, the death of Cyclops, the death of Superman. But then you never hear about it, the death of Archie. And I don't know if it was of a bandwagon type thing, but when I saw this, I looked at it, and you filled me in a little bit when we did the pre-show, and at first I thought it was kind of like there was like a poster of him on, or like not a poster, a mirror, and he was supposed to be, and then I realized, this is the death of, and I just thought it was so cool. Like let's just talk about your thought process on this. This is somewhere no one gave you direction. They just said,
basically,
it's going to be a death of Archie.
So basically, myself and like a bunch of artists were approached to do variant covers. I can't remember how many they had for the issue, but basically the whole all they said was Archie's going to die in this issue, and it was the final issue I think of the series. And I think that then the book became Life After Archie or something. I could be wrong, but. So basically, they were like, "We'd love for you to do a homage piece, like to tribute to the moment, basically." And so my immediate thought was, rather than mourn the death, let's celebrate the life. Basically,
that is great. I love that.
And also, it was also an excuse for me. I love drawing multiple characters. I love adding the personality to different characters.
Yes.
So. For me, it was like I also want to draw every Archie character there ever was, and I think I got like almost all of them in there, except for maybe one or two I can't recall. So I started running out of room. But like, you have Reggie, you have Moose, you have Cheryl Blossom, Veronica, Betty,
Sabrina. You got Sabrina,
Jughead, my favorite, Dilbert. and all these other characters, Josie and the Pussycats in the background. But basically, for my idea was they were all gathering together basically to tell stories about Archie, their life with their friend who all touched their lives in positive ways, basically.
Jeez.
And
I'm about ready to shed a tear.
I was really proud of the piece.
You
it
hit all the nostalgia feels with it.
Yeah, and I was really proud of it, and it was well received. And I think I jokingly said to you, like after I saw the issue come out, I got all the other comps. I saw like all these other creepy photos that were just crying at the funeral. Like I remember there was one of like it looked like the POV from the coffin
from the grave.
From like Jughead and them looking down. I was like, oh, this is just unsettling. Like, what are these comic artists thinking?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like if somebody were to give, I guess if I were to get the job opportunity, it's sort of like, and they give you that creative reign to do whatever you want. I think those are like maybe the common go-to things that you first think about. And what I like about you, it's like you decided. I didn't, you didn't want to like focus on the doom and gloom and the mourning process. You want to go with a celebration of life, and that's Archie. Sure, it's sad, but I like, we're talking about the nostalgia feels. I look at this composition. I think this is like a good culmination of just things that I've observed about your artwork, because you not only coming up with this composition. We talked about the graphic design aspect of your career in terms of just having that appreciation for that Norman Rockwell look.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're kind of spoofing the whole Life magazine thing.
Yeah, so I dressed it myself, which they let me do, which was great.
And then the color, it's like it's a reflective, retrospect, remembering, life remembrance thing. So you didn't have to go with that. You don't have to go with those vibrant colors that we saw, with, like, for example, with this piece, which totally makes sense under the neon lights. Yeah. But then you have this, and it has both that vintage look. It has that somber. It's somber, but you also get that joy in terms of like we're celebrating the life of. And it's just, I look at this and it's so complete. You got all these characters, you get their expressions, and everybody's smiling, and it's like you captured. I'm gonna say like it's Archie lightning in the bottle. It's like you were able to do all that stuff, and it's one of my favorite pieces of yours because it just shows the complete Ramón package in terms of how you approach things and thoughts.
It's one of those ones I'm really proud of, and as all my Archie covers I'm really proud of. But this is obviously the cherry on top. After I finish this one up, I'm like, I'm good. This is I fulfilled my Archie itch.
Until they give you a book, which I don't understand why they aren't doing that.
Maybe I should reach out and go, hey guys, 2023, let's talk.
I
would love to do an Archie one shot. Just something. I don't know what it would be, but because I actually own. I have a bunch of Archie original pages where I have the full comic on my wall, which is big fan of a lot of the original Archie artists back in the day.
Yeah, it does some tremendous work.
Thank you.
And you know what? I think this is I just realized we're already did our first hour, and I
can blather.
I could probably like keep on talking about analyzing these things, but I want to move it along here.
Sure.
We might have to do a two-parter and like have you come back and we'll talk more about it. But let's talk about what we're going to go into our first live drawing. But before we do, I want to set up the backdrop. For you. And the backdrop is that if you for our audience, if you're watching, I put into the I'm going to put it into the area the commenting field. There's a project that he's working on. Let me paste it right now so I don't.
So
this is me multitasking.
No worries. I could it's basically Kukuburi, which is a webcomic, which I did back. I started in 2007. One of those other things I'm doing back then as I'm transitioning through all these things. And I wrote and drew it. Very much an Alice in Wonderland kind of story. Very colorful, very bright, very fun. And very, very storybook oriented. And basically, I did this ongoing for several years till my career took off with Tale of Sand and all the Marvel work, and then the comic, as with other things in my career, suffered due to a lack of updates because my career was taking off. You get older, you buy a house.
Don't say suffered. It's like it got put on the back burner.
I know.
That's what I'm going to say.
I got put on the back burner. So this year is me Well, actually, this year and into next year, hopefully in the years to come, is me returning to the property. Because as I was mentioning earlier, like my last decade of my career has been very much in mainstream comics, which I've loved. But if it's the one thing that it's kind of revealed to me over my career is the fact that I love working on things that are more my own than other people's.
Of
Things
course.
where I have creative freedom, things where I love to just create a world basically. And and this is one of those things that I've missed doing. I've got to play in other people's sandbox. Now it's time to return to my sandbox and kind of
Well,
do.
you play so well in other people's sandbox that I'm going to have to say that when it's going back to this, this is, and just so I'm clear, this particular Kukuburi it's a web comic. You can
Yes.
actually read
Yeah.
everything that's up to this point, but you're going to be doing a Kickstarter, and I just want to let everybody know I put the information of how you can sign up for it as well as
Nice.
read
Thank you.
things. It's in the comments field, but
Yeah.
I want everybody to know that it's like, hey, well, if it's available for free, what's the point of the Kickstarter? And I was like thinking, well, because you want to have Ramon's art in your hands, you want to be able to hold it.
Well,
but it's going to have extra stuff too, right?
yeah. So the idea is, I mean, basically, when I first started Kukuburi way back when, it was always meant to go into print.
Yes.
For me, doing it online was kind of like an accountability. It was like I'm putting out there every week. It keeps me accountable. It keeps me creating something for myself. And developing that story, and also developing an audience. That audience is now aged up 10 years, but hopefully they still like it. But hopefully,
I'm sure they will.
But hopefully, a new audience can also discover it. But the idea being that the Kickstarter will collect the series in chapters, basically. Originally, the series was meant to be in 3 very large 300-page books.
Wow, ambitious.
Yeah, so I've gotten a little bit smarter in the interim. So I'm reworking the story to be collected into
like
probably
arcs,
the 4 or 5 smaller story arcs. So basically, the first Kickstarter will collect the first arc, but I'll also be adding in probably about 30 pages or 40 pages of new content to smooth out the story, finesse it for print. Because when you update for the web, it's a different kind of flow, basically, right? So I want to kind of finesse the flow of the book and make sure it ends on a solid note for volume 1.
Yeah.
And then next year do volume 2, following year do volume 3.
That makes
till
sense.
Till the story completes by volume 5 or 6, basically.
Okay. All right. So I was gonna say let's I want to get into the drawing, and this will allow you to actually go deeper into the characters, and we're gonna circle back around to talk more about the intricacies of the actual campaign. But I really want our audience, to see the magic behind this, because this is your IP, your intellectual property. This is your original character, and like all your art, I'm just eating it up. I mean, I'm gonna be super fat by the time I'm done with this show. But here we have for our audience, I did put some links in the comment field in terms of how you can not only follow, like, subscribe to Ramon's social media, but also a link to the reminder, because this campaign is not live. It will be live, I think, at the end of April.
End of April, early May. We haven't actually locked in an exact date yet, but around there.
It's coming soon, so sign up for it. And this is why you're going to want to do it, because we're going to hear more about this main character, the first of the live drawings that we're going to do. In fact, we're only going to do 2 this time, because I have no co-host. I'm going solo today, so there is no co-host challenge. We're going to be doing 2 live drawings today. And it's a little bit different. It's
actually, let me interrupt you a little bit.
Okay, yes.
Because we between signing in and launching the episode, I've decided I'm going to follow suit and start from scratch.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Perfect. I was going to say that we were going to mix it up a little bit different, and we were going to actually see a piece that Ramon was working on, but actually you're going to get to see something from scratch now.
Yeah, so I'll do something from scratch, and we'll be doing Nadia, the main character here.
Awesome. So that, well, even if it was that other piece, I got a little bit of a peek of it. It still would have been phenomenal to see that part of it. But actually, we're going to get to see like I said, the magic happen. You'll see it from a blank canvas to what we can do in 20 minutes. So just so our audience knows, this is part of the live drawing. We're going to spend we usually do 15 minutes. We'll do about 20 on this.
Mhm.
And then while we're doing it, let me know in the comments field if you plan on participating, and that way we can show Ramon your artwork. Post it to our sister page, which is the Art Show, and let me know in the comments field if you do this. And we're gonna, if you're planning on doing it, here's a picture of Nadia. Do a screen capture. Let's wait a few seconds, and then here's another picture of Nadia. And of course, if you go to the links, I don't want you to like click off this particular live stream because I want you to stay here. But I did post the link to the Kukuburi webcomic link, so you can do that too. But this is another more of a full body shot of Nadia. So
this will be the fun thing about actually going back into this comic a decade later is all I see is errors and mistakes that I need to
fix. your artists are perfectionists, and I think it's one of those things is that I'm sure that we're going to learn more about it, but it's called the in between world. So to me, there's so much room for you to, the writer crutch or like Deus Ex Machina thing is like, hey, let's just make it a multiverse or whatever. And you could easily say that in the in between world, if Nadia and all the characters evolve and look differently, you can say, even though it is a span of time when you did the first one, it's sort of like, well, it makes sense because she's in this in between world where she's going to change.
Maybe, yeah.
So I'm going to say that I love this style. You may see imperfections. I see, grandeur.
Oh no, I love it too.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I think with any book that when you work on a book, any or long form series, the initial pages is a growth as you discover the character and how the character moves and how you draw that character for the most part, right? It was just for me. I just see me, in the first 20 pages of this book, I see me figuring her out, how to draw her, and also when I did the style for this series, I actually chose purposefully to draw in a different way and to ink in a different way, right? Because I wanted a very particular look. I wanted like a very animated, clean style. Right. So instead of like where butternut squash, I inked it with a brush, like a sable brush. This I inked with like a rapidograph or like a felt tip like marker, right? So
and the lines look more. They're not as the line weight is. Much
it's a dead line for the most part, right? It's just a one single line weight. So it's really about and that was me trying to figure things out, and also how I colored it. So as you read the book, you'll see the coloring even becomes more and more complex as the story develops. So now it's just me going back to the earlier parts and kind of bumping them up a little bit to make them more seamless, I guess, is basically what I'm saying.
Okay, all right. So I got like so sidetracked. I was ready to listen to you again for like another like 30 minutes, and I realized we gotta get drawing here. No.
My fault.
I don't want you to apologize because this is part of, I just want to hear your story. It's like that. So, okay. All right. So everybody, if you're going to draw along with us, do the screen capture and leave it here for, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Copy it, screen capture it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo your camera. And I'm going to put 20 minutes on the clock here. And and I hope I'm going to lean on you a little bit to just sort of like, we'll talk about the aesthetic. Let's talk about like her character design and, what, I don't want you to go into spoilers. Of course, you can read the whole comic, so there's going to be some stuff that's already out there. But let's just pretend that no one has read the comic, and you're just kind of like giving a character pitch about who she is, what she's about, and her look, because she does have this unique look, and I'll give my my initial impressions as I've kind of read it. But I'd like for you just to over this 20 minutes, we'll just talk about who she is and what she's about and what inspired her. Okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So let me solo your camera, and then once I solo your camera, we'll put 20 minutes on the clock, and you can just start talking about her.
Sounds good.
All right. Here we go.
All right. Let's see here. Oops. Just make sure my keyboard's here. So basically, I started Kukuburi with a bunch of guys and other creators with a webcomic endeavor called Transmission X. And basically, it was all of us who were working professionals or semi-working professionals at the time in mainstream comics looking to do our own, create our own endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
And my first story actually was a crime noir. And then
Wow.
as I began to write it, I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh my God, this is way too complex for the web. So last minute, or relatively last minute, I changed my idea to Kukuburi, which was an idea I kind of came up with. Like I think every artist has like a little black book of ideas they kind of mill around with. So I'd come up with Kukuburi and some of the characters while doing a show Mocha in New York, which is a very creator-driven kind of show. Kind of, I don't know if people know TCAF here in Toronto is one of the other shows which I feel falls into that realm.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I wanted to create an avenue where I could draw anything I wanted to, or go down any rabbit hole I could in a world that allowed me just basically free reign. Almost like I said, Alice in Wonderland meets Little Nemo and Slumberland. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
was pretty much my mashup. And so
Yeah, you
basically,
use the word rabbit hole, so that
yeah,
like it, you know, it
it's very
totally
appropriate,
makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
You know, and so uh, yeah, I created Nadia and this world, and the in between is, for lack of a better description, without ruining the story, because I don't want to ruin the full story, because not a lot has been revealed about the world yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of the realm in between waking and sleeping, for lack of a better description, where ideas come from, things happen, um, for whether it's artists or creatives in the world, a place where they kind of attach themselves to.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of becomes, but it's a reflection of also an individual's emotions and how they are in their lives, and stuff like that. So it's very kind of a reactive place, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, the story starts off with Nadia, who's in her day-to-day routine, thinking nothing of it, but really kind of just doing the same old. You kind of get the sense that she's got this pattern that she repeats herself in her life, and which a lot of us do. We get up at a certain time. We have our routines that we do every day. And while she's not unhappy, I would say she was also not extremely ecstatic with her position in life, as sometimes we find ourselves in real life. And basically, this was her. At a moment, she suddenly transitions into this other world. Why she goes there, how it happens, the moment's almost explosive. She just walks through a door, and suddenly she's dropped into this new realm. And that part hasn't been explained yet. That's part of the second part of the story that I'll be developing and working on as I do the actual books.
Mm-hmm.
But and basically, she gets introduced to this world where, at first, it's just this splendid, imaginary, just full of just the most beautiful, crazy creatures. You know, everything from giant giraffes from a Dali painting to flying whales to weird creatures, and she's just like in love with the place, never wants to go. But as we know, with all good storytelling, with all good things, there's always a dark lining, or there's always an opposite, or whatever you want to call it. So she soon discovers inadvertently, as she's kind of thrown into a variety of situations, that this place is not all rainbows and sunshine. It has a balance. It has the other side, just like you have, in Star Wars, you have the Force, the dark side, and the light side.
Mm-hmm.
In this world, you have almost like an order and chaos, or a purity and a kind of almost disillusionment at the same time. And but as with all things, it's not necessarily bad. It's just the other side of things,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of how in real life we have to deal with the grays and the other aspects of our lives. She begins having to deal with this realm, and also her place in it, as it begins to react to her emotional state and her, her place in life and that sort of thing. And it really becomes a voyage. It's funny because I started this project before I worked on Tale of Sand, but it actually deals with a lot of the same themes.
So it kind of like influenced you a little bit, maybe?
I'm not sure if it influenced, or maybe
it was coincidental. Just coincidental.
It was coincidental, and I saw a lot of the same themes developing as in Jim Henson's screenplay. Mm-hmm. And that could be that maybe when Jim wrote Tale of Sand, he was in a certain place in his life as a creator. You know what I mean? And I think I was in the same place when I was doing Kukuburi. I was in a very, I felt a little bit trapped. I wanted to break free. I wanted to do things I was capable of, but wasn't getting the opportunity to do. Mm-hmm. So I think it could be maybe the artist's journey, if you will, but this was me, in a way, discovering or trying to find my path. And I was kind of using Nadia as that vessel for my time or my journey, as much as Jim Henson was using Mac in Tale of Sand. Mm-hmm. Basically trying to find that place where you break free, where you can change your destiny, if you will, for lack of a, for more of a dramatic sense. And, that can come in, like we were talking earlier, that can come in opportunities, things presented to you, and how you take those opportunities. And sometimes those opportunities are the wrong ones, and you have to decline them as well, right? So right. It was a little bit of all that. I think I used Nadia as a funnel for this, but also for all my escapist excitement of drawing silly things and whatnot as well. So
you're saying that Nadia might be a little bit of a reflection of you too? Like,
I think every writer or creator, the characters they create are always facets of themselves in some degree. Like you're always taking things and reflecting on them, whether it's your own personality just taking hold and how you interpret the material that you're working on, or your particular spin or observations. I think it's all that's there. The artist's journey is usually shown through their work, whether it's a painting, music, is this album a reflection of a breakup, or is it like you wanting to rock out, and all these different things, right? So this was me, I think, using Nadia as a vessel to kind of learn things about myself, and also where I should, my artistic journey, basically, or that time in my life.
Mm-hmm. And, so she's not based on a ex-girlfriend or anything like that.
No, not at all. No,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. She was influenced visually by a few different stars at the time, I think, or styles. Like she is very much like, if you look at her outfit, she's very much like a bit of a. I don't even want to come. It's like a mashup of maybe a little bit raver, a little bit punk, a little bit alt girl from the 90s.
Parkour. I got a parkour vibe.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything there. Like it was stuff that was obviously prevalent in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. Certain styles, like the cargo jeans, like the cargo pants, the baggy pants, very almost like a Gwen Stefani, if you will, back in the day.
Oh yeah, I totally get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that vibe is there too.
Yeah. So, and it's just interesting to, and very much a reflection of things, all like you said, like clothing, fashion, like piercing. She has a piercing and stuff like that. Uh-huh. If I were to create her today, would she look different? Maybe. Uh-huh. Who knows, right? But at that point in time, she was very much a product of her era. Plus, a few weird, like her shoes are pretty funky. Like because I was very influenced. Like I grew up. You mentioned Arthur Adams earlier.
Uh-huh.
who was a huge influence on me. But I also read a lot of manga growing up as well, like Appleseed, Dirty Pair,
Oh gosh, I
all
think
these things, right?
we have the
So
same influences. Those are all really
yeah,
strong.
so
Yeah.
I brought a bit of flavor of that into it as well. These weird, fashion things that might not really exist in the real world. They're just kind of like things that only exist in a comic book world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the weird outfits you'd also see in like the uh, what's the district? It's the Hurakami district. No, it's a fashion district in Japan,
In
which
Japan, I know what you're talking about. I
which
can't.
which I've actually been to
Uh-huh.
even. Um, it's a fashion district. I actually had a few of the books of a photographer kind of going through that area, and that
Uh-huh.
was also a big influence. All these kind of uh, Japanese, fashion kids just kind of going off on their own
Mm-hmm.
and creating these unique looks. So it was all of it fed into her design, and and then also should have changed my brush here. Um, it was also sorry, I'm just trying to find a brush here on
Okay, no
my
problem.
on my thing, and I can't find it. What was I saying?
You're talking about her look and how she was influenced
Yeah,
by like a.
yeah, like the
Uh,
fashion kids of the era of like
mhm.
certain districts and stuff, and having you know, and then also certain artists too. Like I really loved at the time. I still do. Like Ben Caldwell, who's a great cartoon
I love his style too. Man, we need
animated
to compare
artist.
notes.
Yeah, right.
uh,
So and there are certain stylistic things that probably evolve in her look as I go on into the series and kind of bring it back up to date for my what I would consider a refined aesthetic, a current aesthetic, basically. But
mhm.
she'll still be who she is, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I.
and oh
Oh
sorry, go
no,
on.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Keep
No,
on. I just
oh no,
want to
no. I
continue
was
on
just
your
gonna
train of thought.
say, and she's kind of like the most ordinary thing about this world of Kukuburi. So if you go look into the um, the book and see the other cast members, you'll see like all kinds of wacky creatures, which are also influenced, by things like I think it was a toy series called Scary Girl back in the early 2000s. I also had things like a friend of mine, but also whose work I enjoyed was Matt Forsyth, an illustrator animator. So this kind of pop Funko Pop kind of design aesthetic to creatures
Mm-hmm.
and monsters, um, which I kind of brought in. So if you look at the creatures in the story, they're like some of them are very alien like, some are very monster like. They're just like once again, I just wanted to design anything I could, So you have like whales that are battleships, and you
Mm-hmm.
have
It's it's like your imagination is on steroids in terms of
yeah,
like
pretty much. It was just
anything that can be like considered fantastic. It's like this is reality
yeah,
in
and
its
that's
own.
kind of what I wanted. I wanted that unhinged, unbound kind of like place where I could just go, you know what, I want to draw this, and it's going to make sense. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I think that's pretty much what I did. I created this realm where anything went, basically, and I had a lot of fun with it, a lot of um, what do you call it? A lot of just fun exploring different ideas, drawing in different ways I didn't normally draw. It was also fun because part of being an artist, I think, is playing with your style, doing different things, not getting stuck in a rut and drawing the same way all the time, like evolving and trying different approaches, whether it's different mediums or how you approach, how you finish things. So this was me while also doing this book, having just a riotiously good time uh, figuring out the style I was playing with and doing characters and creatures that I had no other avenue to like. No, I couldn't do these characters anywhere else. Basically, like
Mm-hmm.
no other avenue would provide me the place to create these wacky personalities and different characters. And
Yeah,
that was very liberating, basically,
Mhm.
to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so charming about this story is that not only does it afford you the opportunity to like just go crazy with things, is that it's like the combination of things like these monsters that you come up, they have like a Henson aesthetic too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but it's like I
You
could
never
see
know.
this as being it would easily translate if there was a Muppet version. You could
Oh
definitely
yeah,
you did a live version of this movie and
yeah.
have that. It would feel like it would fit in a labyrinth world. And then of course, you're talking about your experience with video games. I would just love to see this actually even translated to like a video game or an animated series. It just there's so much about this IP that would just translate to so many other forms of media.
Yeah.
And I don't think you did that intentionally, but it just came out that way.
Well, one of the fun things when I was doing this and updating regularly was the fact that I would often get a lot of fan art and see people. I think when you create something that's super fun and that you're excited about, people get off on that energy.
It resonates with them, right?
Yes, exactly. It resonates, and basically, I would get all this great fan art, and one individual in particular actually did a 3D turnaround render of one of the characters, which was just amazing. So, speaking to your notion of what do you call it?
How it could translate to a video game.
How it could translate to other mediums. I saw that and I was like, oh my god, this would be so amazing to have like this 3D. I think it's still on the website. If you go to the fan art section on the website, I apologize. The website also hasn't been visually updated since probably 2012 or something like that. So,
well, because you've had other things going on.
I've had other things going on, so it's kind of hilarious how archaic the interface is. But something I hope to fix in the coming years when a little bit more time falls in my lap, basically. You know what I mean? So, so yeah, it was. But it was great just to see people sending me drawings of my characters, but in their own style. You know what I mean? It was like nothing more thrilling than to see people that just do that, and it goes to show you how much they're excited by what you're doing, but also how much they're invested by what you're doing as well. So that was a truly a wonderful thing, a side effect that I never expected of doing this series online. It's something I hope maybe that I'll really be able to rekindle as I move forward with the Kickstarter.
Oh, it's going to happen.
I'm gonna
go out on a limb and say it's all about letting your other fans of it to sort of like know that it's happening, and I think it's gonna be instantly funded. It's just so amazing.
Oh, thank you, man. Much appreciated. So yeah, that's the in a nutshell. I haven't touched too much on the story because I don't want to give too much away, but she goes on a crazy journey, meets like a character we'll touch upon later, I guess, in the next drawing session, which I've jokingly called Mr. Bones.
Oh, that's not his real name? There's something...
Oh, there's
no.
There's more to him that hasn't been
revealed
in the story. And he's a major player. And, once again, he looks like a very much a product of an era. He's a product of what I like to call almost like the 70s disco era or something.
I totally got that vibe.
He's like a 70s disco villain or something. I don't know what a Miami Vice reject or something, But yeah, so once again, like just creating fun characters that I love, I love to play with, basically. And there's nothing like characters that you just enjoy drawing, and like when you sit down to your drawing table are just exciting to get you going, get you in the mood for art, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's what is that old saying? It's sort of like if you love what you're doing, it's not really work.
That's exactly it.
And
and freelancing for as long as I have, like there are days obviously that drawing is work. Like it's not always rainbows and sunshine. But even the worst days, I remember the worst days I ever had were never really that bad. They were like stressful maybe or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'd always be like, no matter how bad my day is, I'm drawing
I know. It's amazing.
dragons or Spider-Man for a living. Like, it can't really be that horrible. You know what I mean? Like, you got to kind of put things in perspective a little bit, and make sure you're aware of your
How blessed
you are, right?
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
right. So, but with Kukuburi, it was always just a joy because I always knew at the end of the day when I was working on the comic, um, whatever my day job or the contract I was working on at the time, I'd always have Kukuburi, Nadia, in the world to kind of go play in afterwards. So no matter how if I was working on a boring advertising job for a client that was really just a paycheck to make sure I got covered that month, I knew like on the Monday or Sunday when I was updating the comic, I'd be drawing something that was fun and personal to me, basically. So
yeah, I think it's a great outlet, and it shows you can put a totally different energy vibe on it because it's something that's yours.
exactly.
And, I'm just gonna give a heads up. We have one more minute.
One more minute.
I
oh
know
my
it's
God.
crazy, and you know what? I've been resisting looking up because
oh my God, I got like half a drawing here. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Your half a drawing, I'm sure, is phenomenal. I've been resisting looking up, but like I said, it's like when we do drawings, it's like I'm so immersed in what you're saying that sometimes I want to put down my pencil and just listen. But just give you a heads up. We got one more minute, and if our audience members, our audience viewers, if you want to draw, just let us know in the comment field, and that way we can show Ramón some of your artwork as well. Because if you're like me, you're totally inspired by this and looking forward to what Kukuburi is and what it's about. All right, so one more minute, and go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, it's quite all right.
Yeah.
I can focus on drawing now. I'm not talking.
Okay. All right. So how about I'll just maybe let you tighten up your lines here, and I'll just sort of maybe mention a little bit about the Kickstarter again to people that maybe are joining a little later. We have Ramón Pérez, and right now we're drawing a original character from his IP, his intellectual property, the Kukuburi, and you can definitely Kukuburi. Yes, I said berry. Yeah, so you can check that out.
Very good.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
you can
terrible.
check. I think we both have our share of dad jokes that we can drop and not be dad. But exactly. Yeah, so check it out in the comments field, and I'm going to list it a little later on too. You can go like and subscribe to his social media, but you can also sign up for the reminder of this particular campaign, which collects the first, I guess I want to say, story arc for Nadia, and it's going to be launching at the end of April, and you can, like I said, sign up for it and get details, because I know you're going to want to get this because it's such an intriguing story. And when we've been learning a little bit about her character aesthetics, what she was based on, some of that 90s, early 2000s nostalgia that was infused into her. And we're going to keep on talking about this particular character. This particular IP. So Ramón, I'm going to say, and I used to joke with all my co-hosts, is that usually I am always the slowpoke, but the only reason why we can actually add time is if the guest wants to add time to the. So I always try and say, so guest, you would love to add more time. But I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to have a little bit more time?
Let's add 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, because we're only doing 2 drawings. So let's definitely do it. So I'm going to add 10 minutes, and I'm going to start that right now, and that'll give us some more time. And of course, I know we're going to put a little bit more responsibility on you to talk and draw at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Let me pose some other questions about her. Well, I noticed that she has, I think his name is Mr. Bojangles. He's the he's the is that a chameleon?
He's a chameleon. Her kind of, I guess, lack of a better term, avatar would be probably the term used these days.
Right.
He's her guide through this world, and her kind of Yoda, if you will.
Ooh, there he is.
Yeah. And he's kind of helping her along, and giving her guidance. He's been with her in the real world as her pet, but when he crosses over with her, he suddenly has a voice, where he can speak to her, and she kind of gets a little bit like
weirded out. Like,
weirded
you
out
could
by
talk
it.
all along.
Yeah. So I just have fun with it, but yeah, it's definitely a character that is kind of her, I guess, her North Star, if you will, her center point of keeping her on the right, I guess, path, if you will.
So she's kind of like the White Rabbit, kind of, maybe a little bit.
Like
Like
Mr. Bojangles is, kind of, yeah.
Except not so much like a Link to the Queen. He's more of a her like you said, Yoda. So he's there to help her and kind of like guide her.
He's there to help, and he actually got. It's funny because at the cusp where I left off the story, which was like the worst cliffhanger because it was just like in the middle of like a battle. He actually is about to, shine. He has a moment where he's coming to shine. I'm really excited to draw it.
Ooh.
But I know it'll be. My hope is with the Kickstarter, should things go well. This is me pointing to the bleachers, hoping for a good outcome. But the idea is, the one thing, people forget. And it's funny because I still get hate mail for not updating regularly.
Hate mail?
Oh yeah, people are like, well, I guess this is a dead comic. No one wants to. No one. I guess the artist has given up on this thing, and I'm like, it's funny. I tell people, I'm like, do you know how much time this takes? Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love doing it, but like, one page of Kukuburi usually takes me 2 days to do, right? And that means before I used to be updating 2 pages a week. That's like 2 to 3 days almost of me dedicated to something which I love, but unfortunately
you only have so much time in the day.
Exactly. You have to pay your bills and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Get that paycheck in.
Right.
So, my hope is if the book does well enough, the campaign does well enough, it'll allow me to make this my full-time gig. Use some of the extra funds that might come of print edition and utilize that to, help update and keep me on a regular schedule with the comic, with the idea of then taking this full time to print, where everybody can expect a volume every year in the story, right? And that's the bigger picture idea behind taking this to a form, and Kickstarter for that matter, to allow me to create more of it, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think because to me, if you could put your time into it, I would love to see Nadia toys and to see the in between cartoon. It's like there's so much potential behind this that I think that then it becomes like I can do this full time and it's 100% mine. I don't have to answer to anybody else but myself.
And that's the whole idea, the pivot in the career. As I said, 10 years at Marvel and a few of these other companies, which has been great, but it's time to play in my own sandbox, and I have to be able to create an avenue to be able to do that. I have enough of a body of work where people know I can do the work, but unfortunately sometimes it's that whole idea that you have to still make it financially viable.
And that's when people will know you as Ramón.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't have to like, oh, it's that guy. I've seen his artwork. They'll be able to have the name.
I'm just going to change my name to That Guy, really.
You know what? That would actually like that would add some notoriety to it.
Some mystique.
Yes, exactly, That Guy. You'd be like the artist formerly known as Ramón. That guy.
Now That Guy.
Yeah, That Guy.
He answers to That Guy. Yeah, totally.
But I think this is going to be. I think this is just another. I'm going to say it's like witnessing another milestone in your career. I think this is just something that I read it. I haven't got a chance to go through. I think there's 190 plus pages. I haven't gone through all of them. I'm still checking way through. But it's not because I didn't want to. It's just that time. I didn't have enough time to go through it, and I was flipping through page after page and going, man, this is so good. But I got to sleep. Otherwise, I'm just I'm going to fall asleep when I have a Ramón on here. And I encourage everybody to check it out because I think we were talking about your ability to tap on some of the nostalgia, the feels that people look at. To me, it's a new story, but there's something familiar about it,
Mhm.
so it engages me. It makes me want to
Okay,
turn the
yeah.
page, and I think that that's your years of experience doing things for other people and maybe interpreting their, playing in their sandbox. Now it's
Mhm.
sort of like you can take all those skills, those experiences, that wisdom that you gain from like we've been using playing in their sandbox, and
Mhm.
now it's your sandbox. So it's that that's the experience. That's like when you were talking about, you don't necessarily think it was your worst work or like that. It's work that you
No,
did,
not at
but
all.
you
Yeah.
learn from it, and you take that experience and you channel it into your own work, and
Yeah.
it just shows.
No, I think you're right. Like a lot of this stuff is the product of things we do in our career, the things we learn in life, and also how we refine our skill sets over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and and I think you're going to put the best efforts into your own thing as well because it's your baby. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like Bill Watterson didn't do a half-assed version of Calvin and Hobbes. He did the version that was his and his alone. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that's kind of what I think careers will take you to those places. Um, and that's when you really get to shine, I think, as a creator, when you kind of just dive in with uh, wholehearted, if you will.
So
You know,
have you thought like I know you just want to get this Kickstarter out there and like get this first book. I
yeah.
mean, have you thought? I mean, now that you mentioned that you had this role playing
Mhm.
game experience, have you thought about like branching out and maybe doing? I don't know. I could see this being like a board game. I could see it. Have you thought about leveraging some of your experience from that and like maybe exploring how the in between and Kukuburi berry or I don't know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna. You
I've
totally
tongue tied you.
you did. Yes. Could you see this like going into that realm? I mean, have you?
I think I mean I could definitely see it going there. Whether it's me who takes it there, I don't know. Like I love one thing I've learned over the years is let people who are better than you do the things that they're the best at, and you know
Yeah.
what I
You
mean.
just be the creator. You just
And
keep
yeah,
on creating.
I just really just want to create the story in the book.
Uh-huh.
If someone wants to make a video game or a board game, I definitely work with them
Uh-huh.
in creating that for sure. Like I've had ideas for tabletop RPGs over the years. I have a few other properties that I'm working on as well outside of Kukuburi that I know can live in other realms and make fun worlds to game in or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think for me, it's just I just want to create the story,
Right.
have people enjoy that my aspect of it, and then should it become a cartoon or a board game or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
I will do my best to be involved with the company to make sure it stays true to
Yeah, as it
the
maintains your
thing.
vision, right?
Exactly. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know what, let them work their magic. Kind of like when I was allowed the opportunity to do my best work by just getting that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Do the same with my collaborators and allow them to bring their best to the table. We just create something awesome together, you know.
That is a great philosophy because now you can kind of look at it from being the guy on the other side. You being the IP holder, and people you're letting people, it's your sandbox now, but you can kind of say, well, you know what? Now I'm gonna, if people like what I'm doing, they can play in the sandbox too, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Oh, we got
Oh
an alarm
no,
going here.
yeah. Let me stop this and let's see. All right. I was just in the middle of adding Mr. Bojangles in here,
Oh
so
my God, you went crazy.
well, it's like I had extra time, and I was like, usually I don't have that opportunity, but I'll have to finish that later because I'm gonna have to get your feedback. And oh my gosh, now I get to look up and see what you're doing, and yeah, true to every show, when I actually get to see what our guest has done, I am not disappointed at all. Let me. I'm gonna solo you out,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
let's if you can, just sort of like talk about what you were doing with this particular piece, and then I'm gonna go check out. While I'm listening to you, I'll check out the art show and see if anybody else drew along. But here, I'll
Oh,
solo
okay,
you
cool,
out.
man.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. So, I
Oops.
mean,
Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, basically, like I said, this is something that I worked on a long time ago, and the last updates I did online were actually at the beginning of 2020, just prior to the pandemic, where I decided to stop just due to the just didn't feel right, and I had other things on the table. So I'm refamiliarizing myself with the character. Obviously, like I have 10 years more experience, so this is me going. How do I draw her? And in the way, like the new skill sets that I've acquired, how is she different? How is she the same? What is that new version of the style that I would, diving back into her? How would I draw her now, basically?
The
So
evolution. This is her evolution.
Yeah, her evolution, basically. And just trying to figure out, her what do you call it, proportions, her hair. Like one thing I always remember when I first drew the comic way back in the day was I never quite was happy with how I drew the hair. Like it always, some days it would be perfect, and other days I'd be like, I hated it. So, and the thing was, because when I started, like I mentioned earlier, when I started the style for the book, I was creating a new style that I was working in. So I was setting up boundaries and rules to kind of help me define that style. But now that I've stepped away from the style for so long, because I haven't drawn anything else, I think aside from a couple of Star Wars covers for Dark Horse that were in a similar style, I haven't really touched on this style in a long time. So, what for me, it's like returning. What are those constraints that I still want to keep, but what are the ones that I'm willing to let go, which I think will better the evolution of not only the character but the story as well, right?
It's like removing some of the things that maybe held you back, but actually refining it. I'm going to say refining.
Exactly,
it's refining it.
Yeah, because back then, because like I said, I was limiting myself to help define something, but now it's like, okay, I did that, but now I can open it up a little bit more to help this style kind of flourish and grow and become even a cooler, more fun style. You know what I mean? It's like following the evolution of, like, I don't know if you read PvP online, player versus player, the old webcomic. Like if you look at the early comics, they're very stiff and very almost like Flash or Illustrator illustrated, very vector based almost. And then like to his current stuff, which is very loose and brushy. You know what I mean? The artist has evolved, but the characters have grown, and to suit his style, basically. So, and this is kind of the same thing here. It's like really trying to figure out. Oh, I gotta.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like solo you out there, but yeah, I think
that's weird. That my camera seems to be like doing a kind of a thing on there. I'm not sure what happened there. That's
it's like Terminator vision. You're getting like
that's weird. I wonder why that's.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's like auto focusing, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Or like face detecting, or it's a Skynet, and they're like
Skynet's about to kill me.
Yeah, they're targeting you because you're
art,
stuff like that. But I love hearing or seeing this next step because we showed some the first pages of the webtoon, and it's nice to see like this is what we can expect, what we can see as the next these new chapters of Nadia, like what she's going to look like. I know she's ditched the glasses too, the goggles that are on the top of her head. So I don't know. I haven't read too much into the future issues, but I mean the future pages in the webtoon. But maybe there was something that happened and she no longer needs those. I'm not exactly sure. But hey, let's.
Or I just forgot to draw them because it's been a while.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say that it's cool. I was going to say maybe there's a new story. I was like reading into it. It's like maybe the goggles or those things are it's a visual metaphor for something larger. And I was like going because Ramón is that brilliant when it comes to like a storytelling. So I'm gonna believe that. I'm gonna keep on believing that.
All right, let's go with it.
Yeah. So let me. We did get. I just checked the art show. We do have somebody that drew along with us. So
nice.
Let me pull up the tab here. So hold on one moment. And here we go. We share this.
Oh, sweet! That's amazing.
Check that out, Mr. Victor Rufino, one of my really great friends. He's coming at us all the way from the Philippines. So it's like what, almost 3 o'clock here. That means it's like 4 a.m. I think over
Oh
there.
my God, those nice doodles.
So we appreciate you staying up and
wow,
doing this.
That's awesome.
Great interpretation. You mentioned that you've had fan art of your pieces, so it's nice to see that people are doing that actually.
Yeah, no, it's and I love seeing how people interpret the character. You know what I mean? That's one of the favorite things about comics and fan art and film is just like what people take away from the design and how they kind of make it their own as well, right?
Yeah, I think that I'm sure that if he were to read it too, he'd have the same feelings in terms of like just being able to see what she's about and learn. Let me I guess that was I just going through the. Let me unshare this real quick. Again, forgive me. I used to have a
you should. How about you share? I'm gonna watch I'm gonna see if I can turn this green Terminator light bulb.
Okay. All right.
I'm still watching. I'm still here, but I'm just.
Well, I think that was the only artist that or audience member that participated. But let me go ahead and get my art cam ready to go. But you go ahead and see what you can do about getting rid of that Terminator vision.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, so when you get a chance, I'll just show you my piece, and then we can move on to the next drawing.
Let's see if that did it. Maybe I don't know. We're gonna find out in a second. Does it work? Oh, I think I might have turned it off.
All right.
Yeah. Oh shit! That's I keep cursing.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I'm such a potty mouth. Oh my god. Oh my god. Also, I'm just. It's funny because I was like, I just saw your hand going. And you're like, that's what you're working small. That's like a little. Card.
This is only 5x7 because.
Oh my god, it's so cool. That's awesome. I love the gesture in their body though. That's great.
Thank you. I totally dig your character, and I keep it this small because if I was drawing much larger, it wouldn't fit on. I have a. If you can see my.
The camera. I
have a camera. I have to put the camera much higher, and plus, working on a smaller scale allows me to be more gestural. And,
I actually love the positioning of Mr. Bojangles. Like his body language is awesome.
Thank you.
I might have to steal that. I don't think I've ever drawn him that cool.
Please do. I'd be honored if you stole something from somebody like as mediocre as me. But I tell you, awesome. I love the story. I think it's really great, and I'm going to probably for the rest of this weekend after we finish the show, I'm going to read the other. I think I'm 30 pages in, so I'm going to have to read the 160 plus to go.
That's wonderful.
Let me get this off screen.
And
so let's just keep on moving on. Thank you, Victor, for drawing. And if anybody else wants to, I think Sarah Samba, who's another audience member who always draws along with us. If you want to draw Nadia, please do. Just let me know and post it to the art show, and we'll be happy to share that. So we're going to do our second live drawing, and this is going to be the working title of his existing name, because I think you kind of implied that maybe his name might change or it might be revealed.
Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones. So he's the I want to say, at least from what I've read, I was just introduced to him. So let me share this one more time. I was just introduced to this character in the first 30 pages that I read, but you mentioned he has like this disco Miami Vice vibe to him. So I'm going to let you talk about his aesthetic, what he looks like, what your design choices were when we actually do the live drawing. But I want everybody who wants to draw along with us to do a screen capture. He has a very unique look. He's not just a skull. He has a skull with these really, rose red tinted glasses, which adds a totally different vibe to him. And then he has this suit, you can see here, it's kind of like a John Travolta butterfly collar, look about it. But I think it's really, really, really neat. So if you want to draw along with it, please screen capture this, and we'll leave it here for a few more seconds, and then we'll go from there. So, all right, so I'm going to solo your art cam up, and if you want to create a new canvas here, we'll do 20 minutes, and then at the 20 minutes, you will let me know if you want to add time to it or not, but we'll go from there. Okay. All right.
I might pull up an existing one for this guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
I remember this one. So
to make it more finished.
Okay, no problem. So I'm soloing you out right now, and you can. I don't know if you want to. If you don't want to reveal the entire piece, you want to.
That's fine.
It's okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so here we
I
go.
had penciled them up already, so I figured, this will allow me to kind of to play with them a little
I
bit.
already like the start of this piece. So here we go. The clock is ticking 20 minutes right now, and I'm going to put the mic back in your hands. And let's talk a little bit about his look and whatever you want to reveal in terms of what
Yeah,
he's going to bring. The story.
It's
Here you
funny
go.
because sometimes you design characters and you don't know where they come from. I mean, like, actually, just to it's like a little tangent. Like, if you're reading you said you read the comics, so you've come a bunch of the characters already. There's this little character called Reggie, which is off to the side here on this piece.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a little, like a ladybug almost, colored,
Yes.
like red. Yeah. So, like, that character came about because I was drawing a page in the webcomic, and I needed a character off to the right to balance out the composition. And I didn't really have anything. So I was like, I'm just going to put this character here. And then a few pages later, I'm like, I need a character to do something. I'll use that character that I used on that other page. And then suddenly he became, like, after a little bit of storytelling and adventure, he became like a fan favorite. Like, people loved him. And you just don't know where these characters come from sometimes. They just kind of happen just through an organic situation while you're creating the work that you're creating. And I think Mr. Bones is kind of that like-minded thing. You know what I mean? Like, the first image I drew of him was a promo piece for the comic. When we were first starting out Transition X and Kukuburi, and we were promoting it on different platforms and stuff like that. And basically, I drew Nadia with a bunch of people sitting on a bench, and then like they were on this kind of floating rock, and then off to the right, I drew him standing on another rock, and I don't know how he came about. Like, I just like the aesthetic of like the nice slender form. The glasses were, I think I had a pair of these glasses back when I was in my industrial heavy metal days.
Oh, you had rose tinted glasses.
Yeah. So I was just like, I put them on him. I was like, and he kind of reminds me of a character that I watched, like, personality wise, a little bit, like in this kind of pastiche of evil. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie it's an animated film called Rock and Rule.
I think I have. Can you describe it a little bit more? The name sounds so familiar.
It's like a rock opera from the 80s. Like, the main characters are kind of like these mouse.
Yes.
Like anthropomorphic characters.
Yeah, I think I have. And it has like a heavy metal vibe to it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And basically, the villain in that it was just like this over the top, ridiculously, a bit like, just the pastiche of this villain was just so over the top that as a kid, I fell in love with him, and I think I brought that same aesthetic to this villain. Like, he's a little bit over the top, a little bit full of himself. You know what I mean? He thinks he's a rock star. Maybe that's why he dresses this way. But basically, I was, he just kind of evolved. So anyways, on that first image, I drew him, kind of opposite Nadia and the rest of the characters. It was just more for a compositional reasoning. Nothing more, nothing less. There was no big things. I hadn't really developed the full story yet. And then, as I was sitting looking at the image, as I was starting to develop the story, because sometimes you'll this has happened to me in comics as well, where you'll do a promo image and you don't even know what the story is. The company will be like, "Draw Spider-Man versus Galactus, and we'll figure it out." I'm like, all right.
The Stan Lee way. Lee way, right? Yeah.
And this was very much in the same effect. And and basically, so when I was looking at this poster I had done of the character, I was like, well, he's not really hanging out with them. Maybe he's the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, so it was completely almost.
Yeah.
I want to say it wasn't 100% intentional. And then you said, well, he has a look about him. Let's just put him, make him the villain. Yeah.
He has a look about him. Let's make him the bad dude. And that's kind of what happened, right? Like, I was just like, oh, okay,
It,
Um,
it doesn't get any more organic than that, considering that
yeah,
he's bones. So,
yeah, exactly right.
uh,
Yeah, and I think it's funny because that's then your story kind of telling intuitions take over at that point,
mhm.
and you start putting things together, right? And it's funny, like when I first started, you hear writers or script writers for movies or novels often tell you that the character will take you on a journey.
Mhm.
And as cliche as that sounds, it's so true because I had plotted out uh, uh, the first arc of the story basically, and once I started telling the story, the characters started taking me off on these divergent paths. Like it was weird. It's like I was like a passenger
Uh-huh.
to my own story,
Like
basically.
it was writing itself almost, right? In terms
Yeah,
of, in,
like the same beats were being hit, the same touchstones in the story were being met,
uh-huh.
but at the same time, uh, it was I was still as much a passenger on my own story as I was a creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that actually made it even more fun because I was like, oh my god, where are these characters going to take me now? Like this is, I have a story, but maybe I'm going to get a few surprises myself, and that's what happens basically. Like
Mm.
these characters began to kind of interact, and their personalities began to develop as I was writing the first arc, and all these new unexpected adventures just started popping up, which was just like a riot to be a part of. Characters I didn't even expect. I was like creating, um, and it very much goes to kind of speaks to the artist's journey or the storyteller's journey in how a story might develop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you just never know and also what your audience will latch onto as well, right? Like so, for in the story right now, like Mr. Bones is very much a mystery. We know he's a big player in the story, but we don't know much about him.
Mm-hmm.
There, there is quite a like I've written a lot of backstory for him, but I haven't revealed any of it yet because it's not the right time. Um, but it's all playing into his motives and his moves and how he interacts with Nadia and her actual presence in the world as well. You know, so
I
it's
thought it was interesting too. You mentioned when we were, at the very beginning that I don't know if he's completely evil per se, but you just sort of said that this is he is a villain, but you said that it's also just showing that there's, you know, uh, there's different sides, right? There's two
yeah,
sides to everything. So like,
yeah.
are you gonna make it like his angle? Is he gonna be like a totally evil character, or is that too much to ask to reveal?
No, I don't
I guess.
think. I mean, is anybody wholly evil? I don't.
I think
But
it's like I think the line is like every villain is the hero in his own story, right?
I think he very much thinks that for sure,
Mhm.
and he works for a greater motive.
Mhm.
Um, but without revealing too much, I would say his. Let's say he's misguided.
Mhm.
He's gone down a path and he's kind of lost himself, if you will.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And as much as Nadia is finding herself in the world,
Uh-huh.
he as much will have his own journey where
Okay.
he discovers aspects of himself. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like that adage where you'll often hear like any good hero is as good as their villain, basically. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Mhm.
I'm really trying to give him as much uh,
A
uh,
backstory.
backstory,
Yeah.
even if I don't reveal it quite yet. I have to know it
Mhm.
because it's going to dictate his moves and his emotions and his reactions and everything.
Mhm.
Um, like you'll eventually see him interact in the story with the other characters slowly,
Mhm.
um, and it's almost like they're in a business accord at one point. Like they're meeting and they're chatting. So it's
Mhm.
but he has a flair for the dramatics, so he's got to go above and beyond, right?
Well, with that look, of course he does.
I
And
know, right?
and
I know.
I was looking at it, and it's like you're telling me the story, and I'm almost like wondering maybe you'll reveal, and maybe it's in the story. I've get like I said, I'm only 30 pages in. It's like, how did he become Mr. Bones? Like, did he?
That
You said,
hasn't been revealed. I know it in my head what it is.
Okay.
It's very much part, like, if we were to do the arcs of the books, like the first arc is almost, which will be the first 2 volumes of the series, will be Nadia's arc, and basically where he still plays a part, obviously, but she's the main kind of figure. And in the second arc, it kind of flips a little bit, where we focus more on Mr. Bones and his story. And Nadia's still a player, but he's more center stage, and we learn more about him. So
okay,
and that'll be volumes like 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6 is where they come back together again, and you get the resolution of this adventure, basically.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing, like, maybe it reveals how he lost his skin. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, there's actually you haven't been to. There is a sequence where you begin to see him reform in the current series that's available online.
Okay, so it is there.
It's a bit of a teaser that tells you there's more to this guy than we think.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we will get to know more of him, because I think sometimes, you enjoy your villains more than your heroes, because they got so much more. There's so much more unabashedly just hilarious and fun to work with, because they're just no holds bound, right? Like they're doing their own thing.
Yeah, they I'm going to use the word. They can just be purely evil. They don't have to.
Exactly.
They don't have to have like those. They don't have to think about moral consequence or anything like that.
Their moral compass is just off the charts. They don't need it. They don't need to deal with it anymore.
Right.
So.
All right. So just to give you FYI, we got 8 more minutes. So again, I'm resisting the urge to look up. I mean, I saw your roughs there, and I know. I guess we are definitely talking about Mr. Bones. I think we've. I don't want to keep on going down that path, because I don't want you to reveal anything you don't want to.
Yep.
But is he like a? Is there like going to be this reveal that there's another bigger, badder villain, or is he like going to be? I mean, is there? What can you say?
There are illusions. If once for the stuff that you're reading right now, once you start getting into the hundreds, like around page 120 or so, I think we begin to reveal a bit more that there are larger things at play, and he's a part of that as much as some of the other characters are in the story. What that is and how it reflects on them hasn't been revealed yet, but there are definitely bigger elements that I begin to allude to in the story. You know what I mean? There is no emperor per se. You know what I mean? If you were to compare this to Star Wars, like, he might be a Darth Vader kind of level character, but there is no emperor. It's more like I guess. Actually, I don't want to reveal too much.
Okay, no, I was gonna say I'm like eating it up. I'm like going, he's gonna say it. He's gonna say it. Okay.
You almost had me there.
I almost had you. Yeah, my plan.
Yeah.
You thwarted my plan.
You backfired. You tricked me.
So he's not the emperor, but he's a major player, of course.
For sure. He will always have center stage. Like,
he will.
There will be no one that kind of outshadows him.
I like how you said that. If you say outshine, because that's for the hero and the heroine, but then you said outshadow. I like your choice of words there. So like I know that you said you came up with him kind of a little bit like, we talked about in the past episodes of Let It Out. We talked about just when you come up with a character design, the silhouette is always a very strong. That's something that you want to do, because that way, no matter what, as you start telling the story, he or she is going to be very recognizable to your audience. And Mr. Bones, for obvious reasons, he's gonna stand out. And I like how it was almost like by accident that you came up with him. You drew him. You actually focused on the silhouette because you wanted it to balance the composition, and you sort of said, "Well, what do you know? He could be the main antagonist here."
Yeah.
So when you let's talk about character design, because we're only going to, we'll talk a little bit, or we'll show some pictures of some of the cast from the book. But you have you have so many cool monsters. So like, what's your thought process when you come up with character design?
Oh, I mean, you definitely touched upon one aspect, which is the silhouette. I always try to make characters uh, uh, visually, like, if you only saw them in silhouette, you'd know exactly who they are, basically. And that goes for all the characters in the series, more so than probably anything I've ever worked on, to be honest. And also shapes, like especially for this series.
Shape language, right? Shape language.
Yeah. This is very much one that I've delved into shape language, and especially with their designs. I think one aesthetic I took into play when I was first working on the series was, for the most part, every curve would be followed by a sharp angle. Was kind of my mindset. So, for the curve of his bald skeletal head, you have the sharp shoulders of his padded jacket, if you will, right? And that just adds to the silhouette. It just helps you define that visual language. So, it also speaks to their character. As a character, round and soft, or is he pointy and jagged? You know what I mean? Is he evil? Even in like Star Wars, like I said, Darth Vader all in black, Luke all in white in the first series, right?
Right.
And great animators will often tell you that's definitely a big part of their character design elements. And I think while I was working on this as well, I really leaned into animation. Not that I wanted to see it animated, but I wanted the.
Oh, it's gonna get animated. I would say this can't. It'd be a travesty if it didn't get animated. But keep on going. Sorry.
Yeah, but what I said is, like, I want, even though it wasn't an animated film I was working on, it was very much. I wanted the synergy or the energy of an animated film, basically. And that was very purposeful to get down, basically, because I wanted the series to have a very kinetic feel, very energy, like, it's almost like it's musical, if you will, like you're visualizing the a Wagnerian opera or something, right? Like you can hear the
horns,
the trumpets and the horns,
percussions, yeah,
exactly. So that's really, especially if you read the opening sequences, there's very much a rhythmic element to the story, and which is something I really want to play into more as I develop more of the characters and more of the storyline, basically. I want the book to dance on the page when it comes to print, basically.
That is really cool. I like that. And you know what? The colors, and that's the thing about the work, your establishing shots that I've seen for the world, and we showed them in the PDF. It's even when he gets introduced, and he turns like that space giraffe into like it gets engulfed by these mantas, and and the mantas do look kind of cute at first, and then of course then they it's like it corrupts the giraffe, and then to me it's like your visual language there is so strong. You're able to like I think sometimes when you read, or even in comics, or if you watch a movie, it's like sometimes the dialogue or like word bubbles, or this, there's the characters, they get into like exposition. They start talking. They start saying all things, and it's like if you're I think if you're a good visual storyteller, you rely on the visual part of it. You don't need to have it explained so literally to the audience. You have, if you can explain it with a picture, and like a picture is 1,000 words, or if you arrange a shot and you have the shot tell everything versus having it to be spoon fed to them, then I think that's what works. And I look at what you do. You've established all that with color, with line, with the way the gesture of the pose. I mean, I can already deduce so much just by when I'm introduced to Mr. Bones. Like you were talking about his his swagger or the way that he talks. It's like I can, and this is another brilliant thing that it's by far not the first time it's been used, but you use it so effectively. Is when you're lettering the word bubbles for each of the characters, they have their own style of font.
Fonts, yep.
And they have their own color for their word bubble. Oh shoot, I'm like
there we go.
But I was gonna say that to complete my thought, you've done all of this, and subconsciously, when I see that different font, that different color for the type, for the word bubble, it's like I'm already associating like how he's saying it in my head. Like, does he have like this? If we're gonna go in the Star Wars lore, it's like he has an evil British accent. Because all Star Wars villains, besides Darth Vader, all the Empire, they have all those. That's
British, how you know they're evil.
and that's just like, or you were talking about music. It's like I had the same thing. I didn't even realize that. You were talking about Wagner. I had a different soundtrack when I was looking at it because your palettes were so vibrant and so fun, and it wasn't like it was happy K-pop or anything like that. But it was definitely. I had this soundtrack that was going on in my head, and of course, when he gets introduced, the soundtrack changes in my mind. And your art, it evokes all that. It makes me feel that. That's me in terms of what I like, and I'm going to look up. And here I am. I'm looking at your artwork again. You're just killing it. What I can't. For me, inking is such a skill unto itself, besides penciling and composition, being able to get those consistent lines that flow, and it's just as important as establishing that silhouette. And you were talking about shape language and things like that. I'm looking at this, and how do you get those lines so tight? They just look so.
He's actually one of the characters that is very much defined by shape language. Like he is just the way he moves. And I create like he just basically speaks to the use of shape, basically. Like he's very much in that regard, And like I love playing with him, especially his jawline, like his like the way he's animated. I can picture it being how it moves and waggles on his skull,
And that's got to be challenging too, because he doesn't, when you draw faces with skin on them, the lips.
Yeah, for sure, right?
The lips or the nose or the creases, the furrowed brow, they dictate what kind of emotion he is. And this is another challenge when you're using Mr. Bones. He's a skull, and you're able to still, like here I'm looking at this one, and this is what I'm going to say is this is his devious, contemplating grin.
He's a mischievous grin, basically. Yeah.
Right, and it's like you don't have any of those other facial elements to express that, but yet you can do it with your your line.
With him I play with the jawline and like the mandibles of his lower jaw and like the how can you create a smile out of a skull, right? You know what I mean? And
even the dimples, like you put those little dimples in his chin, and that is almost like actually it's not a dimple, it's just a depression in the jaw, but they evoke like dimples, so it's sort of like I see like this is his evil grin.
Exactly. So I just have fun. He's such a fun character to play with, especially because I treat him almost like he's like 3-dimensional but also 2-dimensional in how I like approach his shapes. Very, very sharp, very thin, very pointy, very uncomfortable, just like his collar and his shoulders, right? So
the angles, the sharpness versus versus curves, right?
Which is Nadia. She's all curves. She's like, she's got the sharp hair and stuff like that, but for the most part, her silhouette shape is much softer than his.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And it's so funny that you say this, because to me, when you explain it, it sounds, that's so elementary. It's like so obvious, but often if you're an artist or if you're just looking at it, you don't get that. You don't notice it. You just notice it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And those shape elements, they really help, drive home in your mind, who this character is. And so you don't. I guess what I'm trying to say is like if it's not handled well, then you notice it more. But when it's done right, it just makes sense. And
you most even notice it less. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, eating this up. It's so cool. Let me change the view here.
Yeah, for
Hold on
sure.
one second, because we did
Yeah.
get somebody who
Oh yeah,
did
nice.
draw along with us. So let me go and minimize this. All right, so here we go. Let me share. Let's see. Oops. Share screen.
It's funny just to
And
push this picture that I just drew compared to the one you just had up as reference to see how much he's changed.
how he's evolved. Yes,
He's evolved, right?
and I want to say that he's actually gotten kind of more sinister. I think he's
Maybe,
done,
yeah, yeah.
and it's definitely added to it. For some reason, the Chrome tab that I want to show is not showing up.
Yo.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. All right. So this is from Sarah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I love how he's slipping the glasses on. That's wicked.
yes, Sarah killed it. Sarah is a big fan of like the Disney and also
Oh, nice.
you mentioned the Disney style as well as the Japanese like manga anime style. So whenever she draws something, you can see some of those influences shining in. But just like she's
for sure.
in search of her style too. She's just really done, and she's captured that mannerism. It's really
great body language there.
Yeah, I really enjoy that, and so I'm glad that we got to see somebody take a stab at doing Mr. Bones here.
Oh,
He's such a fun character. You stop this screen and let's go. Let me see if there's anybody else that drew along with us. And it looks like that was the only one. I think the time zone. I think the time switch and the time zone thing kind of like threw everybody for a loop.
Everybody just combobulated. They're like, "What time? What time?"
Including me,
you.
Yeah. So let me show what I did, and then we're
let's see it.
Along.
Bring it.
Right.
Oh, I love that. I love that dramatic angle. That's amazing.
Thank you. And I wanted to make it look like he was getting ready to do something dastardly, but he was yelling out what he was going to do. It's kind of like when you watch those old Japanese like cartoons, especially the Robotech or the robot ones. That's like
they're very dramatic.
They'll go skull crusher punch, and it's like they have to announce what they're going to be doing. So he's like saying evil deed on Nadia.
He likes to announce things, so that's right up his alley.
and with his attire, I really wanted to emphasize the butterfly collar and have his jacket kind of like billowing out. But it's almost like he was going to be doing also announcing he's going to do a disco fatality or something like that. But it was fun. I can't say enough in terms of like the world that you've created in terms of just evoking all sorts of imagination, and that's something that I really just think that you've tapped something that's very deeply nostalgic. That's why I think when you announce this or when you launch it on Kickstarter, I think you have such a good fan base, and you have even though this is something that was done years ago, it's gonna silence all those haters that were like sending you hate mail and said it's getting done, and not only is it getting done, it's gonna have extra, like you said, 30 some pages. So it's gonna be something that it's gonna be new for everybody that's been a fan of yours and has really kept up with it. They're gonna see some new angles or some new pages that you're gonna add to. You say you're gonna use that to help round out like some of the story arcs.
For sure, I'm definitely gonna like help. As I say, finesse, massage it into a better state, basically. So it's like, especially in there's a couple of sequences I know of right off the hand. I want to add like an extra 10 pages just to smooth out storytelling. Add a little bit more dramatic build up and that sort of thing. Because, when you're updating, back when I was updating regularly, it was 2 pages a week. So you had to be much more punchy with your updates. As opposed to a book where, you have a little bit more play because
more time. I mean, more pages and panels.
And people are turning the page right away, so you don't have to have every thing be like a staccato beat of cliffhangers. You know what I mean? And as you read the story like online, you'll actually notice that as I get further along in the story, I actually start to naturally move away from that anyways, because I'm servicing the story over the weekly update, basically. So it's really just me going back in and kind of just finessing story elements, adding more to it. I always considered the online version like the beta draft, like it's the first draft of the story. And even there's parts where I'll probably remove dialogue in certain areas and that sort of thing, because I've learned and grown as a writer as well over the years.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
look back
that
at
sandbox is getting, like I said, more refined. You
well,
can.
yeah, sorry, as I say, the beauty of working for all these decades with other creators is the fact that you learn from them as well. Like you work with Jason Aaron or Brian Michael Bendis or Jeff Lemire, Chip Zdarsky, like
Whoa!
all
Listen to
these
those
guys.
names. Listen to
Like
those names.
yeah, you work with them and you're like, okay, I see how they work a story, how they develop dialogue or whatever it might be. So I'm not just drawing; I'm also learning as I go and working on these properties. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That is what you want to do. You want to be able
yeah,
to. You want to surround yourself with really talented people, so that way you can hone your craft and just tell a better story, both visually as well as on the page. And
yeah,
you have the benefit of being the author as well as the artist,
yeah.
colorist, letterer. I mean, you do all of them. So I guess it's one of those things. Is if you and I have to say you're succeeding in all of them. You're not failing at any one of them. And now that you're playing with your own sandbox and you're telling your own story, then it's only more evident in there. But I just want to share. I just got a note here across the comment that somebody else did draw along with us, and
nice.
Let me share that real quick. This is also from Victor.
Is it the Terminator that has a green square on me?
Yeah, it's like
I tried to turn it off. I was like, go.
Yeah. Well, when you see this one, he looks like he could be like Arnold as a T1000, T800. So here we go. Can you see this?
Oh, that's wicked. Oh, I love that. He almost reworked reverse. He worked from black to white, which is kind of interesting.
Did. And I like the hand on, or the finger there on the chin.
The shadow there. That's great.
Yeah, and it made me think like I we were talking about Terminator and Skynet. It's like you could just put like a metal sheen on him, and he could be a T800.
That's true. Yeah, right.
In the in between world.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, it's like people are inspired by what you're doing. Yeah, Victor, great job. I love it. Love it so much. Let me get rid of this. And
that's wonderful.
Okay, so we got through the live drawing, and then we're gonna have to I really monopolized a lot of your time today.
It's fine. It's all good.
But we want to talk a little bit. We talked about how the Kukuburi is going to be coming later on in April, but you also have something that's going on right now, and that is the the KLAATU Comic Creators Raid Anthology.
Yes.
4.
4.
What a mouthful. So I'm gonna pull up some visual imagery to go along with it, but I want to let you kind of like talk it, because this is now kind of like, aside from you being a creative contributor to this, this is near and dear to you, because you are, I'm gonna say, you're the head cat herder at Raid Studios. So you're kind of like overseeing this thing. You're designing, laying out the book. You're getting all that stuff ready to go, but I'm going to let you kind of like talk about this while I pull up some images, some
for
sample
sure.
Images, right?
Yeah. So basically, the Raid Anthology is a series of books. It's a yearly anthology that we've been doing since 2017, and it originally started out as a kind of impetus for the creators in Raid to have a place to do their own stories, and kind of let loose and do their own thing, basically. Mm-hmm. And then it's evolved where we start to reach out to other creators in the industry, whether they're professionals, veterans, or amateurs looking to break in and maybe just looking for that first step into a larger world, basically. But it's a place just to have fun, have creators create, and kind of do what they want to do. So as I said, we started this in 2017. We took a break during the pandemic for obvious reasons. But we're back, and the current Kickstarter is for Volume 4, which we're kind of playing with. We're taking the book into a larger direction. As I said, we're inviting other creators, trying to broaden the scope of the stories we tell and the styles we share in the book. And so the book is done. We're basically... and the campaign is actually great. We're funded already as well, which is fantastic. Thank you to everybody out there who has backed the book. But we're pushing for more, just to make it better paper, cover stock, add special inks. Like we want to do so many nice things to this book to make it really a portfolio piece for the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stories in the book revolve around science fiction, fantasy, horror, a lot of the genre, very genre driven book. And you'll actually, we even have a couple of prose authors who wanted to stretch their legs doing something a little bit more traditional with illustrations, which we were like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's get your stories out there. Like that's what we're here for, you know. Thank you, Joe. That's very awesome. And yeah, and basically, yeah, we're looking forward to doing KLAATU. Is basically we've kind of dubbed it KLAATU, and we're doing 2 more, Barada and Nikto, in a homage to the classic.
I love those names. I love those names.
It's a homage to the classic The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's words that have been used many times throughout sci-fi. Mm-hmm. And
I keep on hearing Bruce Campbell saying it, right?
I know, right? Exactly. And we're basically using these as the next 3 in they're not. You can buy each book on its own. They're all standalone stories, but we're just kind of packaging them as a volume of 3. As the first 3 in this campaign, actually, we're offering a slipcase edition to hold the first 3. We'll eventually do the same for this trilogy of books, basically, and then probably should we continue after 6 into volume 7, 8, 9, we'll probably mix up the format again, try something different, maybe. Who knows what, right? Mm-hmm. It's the fun of doing something different and keeping creators on their toes, but also letting them kind of just jump around and do different things. Yeah. So yeah, we have a great array of talent in this book.
Phenomenal! Like your studio is filled.
Yeah.
With, I mean,
look
at the variety. Aside from the storytelling, I mean the visual style.
Such a variety. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the beauty of anthology too, is because.
Yeah. And this isn't just our studio. This is like people outside in our network.
Oh, it is.
Our friends. I mean, we started off just like the first volume 1 is essentially just the studio doing an anthology. But over the years, we've added more people to it. We've invited people to kind of let loose and do different things. So it's very much like a good portion of the members of the studio are in this book. But we also have a lot of great guests like Derek Loftman or Hoche Anderson, who are powerhouses in the field, basically. And these guys are contributing some amazing and beautiful artwork and stories to this book. So we couldn't be more excited. And as soon as this guy's off to the printer, we're going to start developing volume 5 and 6. We're excited.
That much content. That much content.
We're just excited. Like it's been a phenomenal year. For the studio and for the book, and just getting creators jazzed about doing these things and doing conventions and all that stuff, right? So I think you can see the enthusiasm being poured into the book, and we just want to keep going at it, keep doing it, and really return to a nice regular yearly schedule with this anthology, and just showcase some amazing people out there that we've either met or discovered throughout our travels as well. There's so much great talent out there, and there's something nice about putting it in a book. Like there's like you can find so much online, but there's nothing like having a book on your shelf and pulling it down and flipping through it. And,
I agree.
You know completely. What I mean? I don't know.
And it's because it's something tangible. And of course, I'm a total graphic design nerd, so I get it. To me, it's a trip going down to to do a press inspection.
Oh yeah,
to see the presses, the uncut sheets, and to smell the offset ink.
For sure. Yeah.
But that's aside from that. Even if you don't go do the press inspection, to get an actual tangible book, to flip through the pages, and I love digital comics. I love webtoons. I love the convenience of just being able to carry like all that on an iPad or on your mobile device. But there's still something so visceral, something that's satisfying when you can turn a page. Turning a page, it's like you were talking about the story beats and arcs. It's like, and when you want to end a story, ending it with a cliffhanger or something like that. That literal turning of the page is like, are you afraid to turn the page because you don't know what's going to happen to the hero or heroine?
Exactly.
And I guess it's like a mouse click, but it's not quite the same as doing a page turn. But I'm looking at this, and it's just amazing to see I think that's the beauty of an anthology, is that it allows you to showcase.
Yeah.
When you buy a book, you don't even if you're a big fan of the artist or the writer, when you buy a traditional book that's only done by a particular team, it's I think of this as kind of like the Quaker Oats oatmeal variety pack. You get your maple brown sugar, you get your different flavors. And the
your
good
apple
news
and
about
cinnamon and
apple and
stuff.
cinnamon is that the only thing is that there is no plain flavor. There's no plain flavor in this anthology. Everything is in it's going to be something for for everybody.
It's wonderful,
and there's so many different styles. I mean, I'm just flipping through this, and you can just see, even just looking at the color, aside from theme, and you said there's so many different genres that are being explored too, and everything from noir to like comedy. It's just amazing.
There's so many unique voices, visual voices, and storytelling voices as well. Like everybody tells stories in different ways, and this is just a great kind of buffet, like you said, a selected pack. And that's one thing I always loved about anthologies growing up. Like I was always a huge fan because you never knew what you were going to get. And you discover so many new talents and creators that way. And sometimes they might not have something for everyone, but at the same time, there'll always be something for someone.
Yeah, you're right. And I have to say that the chances of you finding something in this anthology are, I want to say, like 100%, because there's something for everybody in here. And I encourage you. I'm gonna I'll put it back into the comments field where you can contribute to this. So look that for our audience that's watching. I'm gonna pop that in a little later because I got to keep my mind focused on the things that I got to show here. But now that we've talked about that. This is another part of the show that we talked about yesterday during the pre-show, which is I'm so excited to do. And I know we're pushing a little bit longer for this one, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity. And I don't know how difficult this is, and I don't know if you're still interested in doing this, but would you like to still do like a quick studio tour? Is that something that's possible?
Yeah, let's do that up.
Because while you get your phone ready to do this, I just want this is a treat for me, but I'm going to say that it's a treat for I'm eating it up. It could if we weren't even live, I'd want to do this, but since we are live, I wanted to share this part of this particular opportunity with our audience, because this is Raid Studios is not like they're not Marvel, they're not DC, but that's part of their charm. The reason they're a small studio, very focused, has lots of talent, super talent, and it's just. I'm just curious, to see what this kind of creative environment is. And of course, with all the stuff that's been going on with the pandemic, and a lot of us are working from home. I'm a graphic designer. I do, everything is art direction from home. So to me, it's like I don't go into the office, and I miss that camaraderie.
Yeah.
So Raid Studios is open, and they're in there now, and I just wanted to if Ramón would be so nice to like kind of share that creative space, we can do a little bit of a tour.
Oh, yeah, give me 1 second here.
Okay, take your time.
I should have done this before.
That was my fault. We
were
going through Murphy's Law in terms of all the little drama stuff that was going on, but don't want to put you out there on the spot. But take your time doing that.
Give me like a minute.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about some of your Kickstarter projects. So go ahead and do what you got to do.
Sure.
If you just joined us, or if you want a little bit of rehash, our guest is Ramón Pérez, and he's the head cat herder at Raid Studios. We just showed the anthology project, which is let me get the full name of this. It is the KLAATU Comic Creators Unleashed Raid Anthologies Volume 1 through 4. The campaign is live, and it is overfunded. It's already funded already, but every little bit helps, because then we can unlock stretch goals and things like that. It's at $21,063. Is that Canadian dollars, or is that?
Oh, I guess I'm not sure what you're reading. We're at 26,000 Canadian dollars. Yes.
Oh, okay. I think this maybe translates it to American dollars, but one thing that is universal is 296 backers. I mean, that isn't phenomenal. And I always make this joke. It's sort of like, unless Ramón has 296 family members, then these are people that just genuinely love everything about Raid and want to support you guys. And the goal was only 11,000 plus, and they are more than I think they're closing on double funded on this, but we still got 18 more days to go, and it's and I showed some of the sample pages. It's ready to go. Ramon, one of the big things that I look for with crowdfunding is that and I've had to not support certain things unless I was 100% felt really good about the creators, is that I want something that I don't have to wait a year or 2 years, or in some cases I'm still waiting on things that are still being created, and to see that this is already done, it's ready to go, it's just a matter of completing the campaign and it's off to the presses. That is one really good thing about this campaign, and these aren't fly by night publishers. Raid's been around. We heard from Ramon. Raid's been I think it's is it how many years old now? Did you guys celebrate an anniversary?
This is our 20th year, actually.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years for the studio and 5 years for our publishing arm.
Yeah,
basically.
Sorry,
so that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go on. No.
Okay. Oh, I was going to say, they're not fly by night. They have a reputation. A good reputation, and this is a culmination of a lot of talented people, a lot of talented artists, writers, creators that have been put into this particular book. Ramon, did you have a question? Is it not
I'm just getting annoyed because my Restream won't let me access my camera, which is I don't know why. There's all these security things on your phone nowadays, which is just
it's a good thing and it's a bad thing.
Let me see. Let me just try to. Let's see here. Raid. Let's see. Join stream. Am I able to get in? I don't know. Your browser does not support it.
Are you using Safari?
Or... Yeah, Safari. Yeah.
That's interesting. Safari can be a pain in the butt. Do you have Chrome?
Oh my God! Yeah.
Chrome?
I have. I don't know if I have Chrome, but I do have another one on here.
Okay.
Let me just quickly open it.
Okay.
And...
I'll let you try and do that, and I'm gonna refresh everybody in terms of your personal project, which is Kukuburi, and I want everybody to go check that out. It is available to read as a webtoon, but it's going to be collected into a consolidated volume, at least the first story arc, and that's going to launch at the end of April. So look for that as well. And the best thing that you can do is like and follow. In fact, while you're doing that, I'm gonna re-copy and paste your information into the chat area so that people can follow you while you.
Let's see here if this works or not. Join stream.
It's not letting you do it.
No, I just love it. It's like I tried this other one. It says Restream Studio requires Safari to work on this device, but then I go to Safari and
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
how about this?
Oh my God!
We're gonna this is going to be one of the things where you have to come back, Ramon. Now
I will.
We're gonna work out the
kinks,
the weird Restream.
Hey, we're down a host. I got a robot targeting my face.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's been a day. I think so.
It has. We had the time change, and then we just had browser drama here. So anyway, so let's just
I will happily come back on.
You're gonna In fact, I 100%. think let me double check here, and there actually would be. You know what? March 27th, we are going to have the Raid KLAATU contributors, according to Sam Noir, who's your resident spokesman for. He's already booked that. So I don't know which one of the contributors are, but I think that you being the head cat herder, you can pull rank and say, I'm going to be there and I'm going to do a studio tour on March 27th.
Yeah, I think that's the weekend after. We have a convention next weekend, and then the weekend after is that. So even if I can't make it for the full one, I'll stop in for just the hello for sure.
Excellent. Or if you want to do a pre-recorded video, we can say it's like a special message from Ramon from wherever you are, and we can definitely do that.
I'll happily share. It's just the technology's being an annoying little
thing today. But
exactly.
But you know what? We're not going to let that stop us. We're just going to keep on chugging along. Exactly. So since we can't do the studio tour, I just want to we'll move to what we call the Oscar speech. And if if any of our audience or guests have been here before, that's basically you just give your final thoughts and your thank yous or whatever. But it's completely up to you. I'm gonna hand the mic off. Yeah, I just want you to just give us your Oscar speech, and we'll go from there. So let me solo you, and
no pressure.
No pressure.
Oh my god,
no pressure.
Oh my god.
And just we're gonna ignore the targeting device that's on you. And
yeah, I know. We'll just ignore this right here.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny because I loaned my camera out to somebody the other day, and I think they changed the settings on it.
Oh.
And now I got the targeting computer. And I'm going for the Death Star run here.
I think this is like a TikTok function that was added. I bet it was Sam. Sam put it in there.
Yeah, maybe. I'll just go off screen and go over here. Or if I talk this way, it disappears. So if I just
it did.
I talk in profile. I'll just talk in profile, and then it's all good.
You talk in third person at the same time. You can do Yoda speak. Yeah.
But basically, I mean, Oscar speech. I mean, this reminds me when I won the Eisner. I babbled up like an idiot when I went on stage. But you know what? I couldn't be in a better position. I have surrounded by so many great and talented artists at RAID and in the community, not just in Toronto, but in the greater comics community. There's so much wealth and talent, and generosity that you can't get this far in a career without just people, and they just they'll elevate you, they will teach you, they will educate you. There's so much awesomeness, and basically I'm so happy to be part of RAID and the endeavors we're taking on with publishing books, with publishing anthologies, collections, whatever it might be. And I'm super excited for the next year to come and what endeavors and what things might lie ahead. So, thank you for having me on here. Reaching out to your fans and your community and letting me be a part of that. So it's fantastic to, I just love this stuff because it just goes to show you how awesome the comics and arts community is, and how much we prop each other up on the shoulders of giants, if you will. So, yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to returning with better technology, no targeting computers, meeting this mysterious other host. I don't know. I think you made him up. I'm not sure about that.
No, he's phenomenal.
I look forward to being back and chatting more. And there's so many more tangents we could have gone down and
exactly.
and explored basically. So whether it's on March 27th or another night, we'll make it happen.
Oh, that's what I want to hear. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the show. And but before we sign out, I want to plug our charity partners. So if you bear with me one more moment, I'm going to share one more screen.
Yeah.
Let's see. And here. Okay. And this is our charity partner. We are not financially tied to them in any way. They are goldenfight.org. And who is Golden Fight? Golden Fight is a charity group that I want to say is big enough and small enough at the same time. Small enough in the sense that they are not Gen-Y. They have a very focused group area that they want to help, and that's in the my neck of the woods, the Mid-Atlantic region. And why they are big, what makes them huge, what makes them so special, is that they help families who have children that are dealing with difficult diseases like cancer. And when that family is focusing on the healing of their child, they inevitably will have financial difficulties, and that's where Golden Fight comes in. I was thinking that it was 97, 98% of the money they raised would go to the families, but that 1 or 2%, that would go towards just the cost of running a business in a very nominal amounts. But I was reading it again, and it's 100%. 100% of the money they raise goes to those families so that they can focus on their child getting better. And that's where they are huge. So, like I said, we are not financially tied to them in any way, shape, or form. We just want to get the word out about them. And if you're considering donating to a worthy charity, this is one of them to consider. So, again, that's goldenfight.org. And we're hoping to do some partnership fundraising opportunities in the future with them. So stay tuned for that. They'll come a little later on. But let me close this out, or actually show this one more time. And here we go. Let me switch this view here, and you get to see Ramon's profile, so that the Terminator vision.
That's what I'm doing, right?
So the Terminator vision doesn't show up with the.
I'll let it focus on Fozzie Bear and Odie and Garfield
exactly.
there. And,
that's 100% intentional. Knowing some of the inspiration that's on his wall. Yeah. So if you have those things on your wall behind you, you too can be like Ramón.
I've actually had this on my wall since I was probably like 5 years old. This is
really?
It's always been there, and it basically says we must all learn to laugh at ourselves, basically. And you can't take yourself too seriously in this world.
Those are words to live by. I think
exactly.
If we all didn't take ourselves like so seriously, then we could realize, often things can be so divisive in this world. But when one thing, let's just appreciate art. Let's tell good stories. Let's make people laugh. Let's make people imagine. Let's revel in the creativity. Ramón, Raid Studios, they are practitioners of that. That's something that if you want to get the anthology, you will see that creativity on the 100th power scale. It's just amazing stuff. So again, in the comment field, I'll put all that information there so our audience can support, follow you, Ramón, and get that that anthology, as well as look forward to Kukuburi's premiere of the actual printed volumes at the end of April.
Exactly.
Okay?
Awesome.
All right. So that being said, this is where I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to shed a tear, and I'm just going to be. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be also relieved, because it's like, can anything else go wrong? Please
don't say that. Please don't say that.
It's like, but despite all of that, it's been a heck of a time. It's been so awesome to have you on the show, and I can't say how much I appreciate you enough. So looking forward to promoting some more of your compadres throughout the throughout the rest of the month in March. We're going to have some more raid talented creators later on. So thank you for being with us this Sunday, and look forward to our Thursday freestyle. We're going to possibly try and get some other events rolling along. The deal that's here in the United States is we're going to formally announce it tonight. It's in conjunction with the NCAA tournament. Basketball tournament's coming up. So we wanted to do this really fun event where we're going to actually do something similar. But it's going to be called the Last Indie Character Standing. So we're going to have a bunch of creators that we've cobbled together from past shows. And there's 20 of them. We did little cards for them, and we're going to do like these little matchups, and people can vote on them and see them advance in the tournament style bracket that we set up. And I'm going to have to say, Ramón, we're going to have to get Nadia on another edition when we can get that. Yeah, we're going to have that, because or maybe Mr. Bones,
Mr. Bones, Rendo, Reggie.
Yeah,
so many characters.
There's so many characters, and now I'll get in touch with you about putting together a trading card that we kind of put together with all these little stats.
Cool.
And that way we can get you in on the next one and see how it stacks up, because it's all about rallying that fan base, getting other creators' fan bases excited about it, and because everybody wins, even though it's set up as a tournament. Everybody wins, because you may, just like an anthology, you may discover other artists you didn't know about all through this event. So that being said,
wicked.
Thank you again, and
my pleasure, man.
We'll see you next week. So here we go, taking us out. Bye bye.
Bye bye.